This is the Wait For It podcast.
Hello, Twitch audience. I am your co-host, Phil Barrera, a.k.a. Phil the Filipino.
Okay, that's going to be an interesting way to start the episode for the podcast when it goes on the feed.
And not Twitch audience.
Yeah. I'm also your co-host, Mr. Eric Almighty, and this is our 2024 Letterboxd recap, a bonus episode. We are live streaming, and we'll be releasing on our feeds on Monday, January 6th. So for those of you that are joining us live, we're excited to have you. And Phil, I'm excited to recap in depth all of the movies we've watched. Between the three of us, we have each watched at least 50 movies, and I think that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I set this goal for 50 in the beginning of the year, and then you guys came along for the ride. One of you actually surpassed me in terms of films that we watched. So why don't we go ahead and introduce that guest, as you guys can see here on your screen, I believe. Okay, there it is. Okay, for a second I got concerned because I couldn't see the stream, but we're good now. But yeah, Philline, thank you so much for joining us here tonight as you embarked on your own film journey here in 2024 in 2024. And I think that's what's going to be really interesting about this, is because we all had very wildly different experiences when it comes to film. So are you excited about this episode and your first visual appearance on Twitch? You hung out. What did we? Oh yeah, we played Overcooked on Twitch in 2024, but first time on screen, and for a really fun, I think what will be a really fun episode.
Yeah, I am excited to be here. Thank you for having me. I didn't think I would get to over 50 movies this year, but I got there, and I am excited. I am happy that you guys had me on, so thank you.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. We'll have a lot of films that that weren't on each other's lists. Right before the stream started, we also got a new follower. So DM Greer, I don't know if you're still in here. Thank you so much for the follow. We're not doing this in OBS, so all my bells and whistles for Twitch are not here. It's going to be pretty straightforward. Hello, Joanne. And also,
Hi.
There is a little bit of a delay because we're doing this in Riverside, which is our podcast studio, and then it's linked to Twitch. So if you put stuff in the chat, there may be a little bit of a delay. Hello! And
Hi, Dom.
and we'll... oh, okay. You know who that is? Okay, gotcha. So there may be a little bit of a delay in us getting to your responses or questions. Just know that we're not ignoring you. It's just taking a little while to get back to us. But hello, Wendy P. And very excited to talk about all this here, Eric. So Philline and I watched a few more movies than you did this year. So are we ready to kick it off? Do we want to have any overarching just kind of thoughts about our year in film in 2024?
Yeah, so first and foremost, I did test it on live stream. Speaker layout has changed, so now we've got speaker big, other people tiny on the side, which is a cool look, I think.
I like that.
So exciting stuff. We want to do more of this, which is really cool.
Big
screen.
Little. We are off the rails. So
did we see the Croods in 2024?
Bonus episode is going to be
please.
a different vibe. But, we had our end-of-year awards, and we talked a lot about movies, shows, games, etc., but we really spent a lot of our time this year going to movies. For comparison, Phil, I don't remember exactly what your count was, but I finished at 25 movies. So the fact that I was able to double that is crazy, and I'll be honest with you, I thought I was going to get to 40 maybe, and that would be the max. But once I got to about 43 in the past couple days, I've been cranking out movies. I watched 6 in the past 2 days just to get to that number. Anything over 50, I think, is insane. So kudos to both of y'all. There are also several movies that I did not get to that I'll probably bring up throughout the episode, which is a bummer. But and one in particular, you can't find anywhere without pirating it. So we'll talk about that one, which was probably the biggest hit to my list, I think. It doesn't feel complete until I've seen that film. So overall, though, I'm really happy with my list and also the films that I saw. A lot of really great movies. Also some stinkers, though.
Yeah, I definitely saw some bad movies in 2024, which I know Eric will have commentary on. And we did go over that bottom 5 also in our end of year awards. So that has not changed as I expected, because when we did record that episode, there were still a few days left in 2024, but that bottom 5 has stayed the same. So, but I do know there is one movie that Eric really wants to talk about that he saw recently that is in both of our bottom 5s, and yeah, that's going to be a fun conversation as well. Philline, did you foresee that you would see more than 50 movies in 2024?
No, like last year, like Eric said, I had only watched 23, I think. But doing things like signing up for Shudder, which, as we all know, I'm the horror fan here, and that really opened a lot of doors. And there was a lot of horror films this year that I was really excited to watch. A lot of bad ones. You'll see that a lot on my on my list, but still good. Still a good year for horror.
Okay, Windy P just put The Boy and the Herring in the chat, which is not the name of the movie either. It's The Boy and the Heron.
Also not this year?
Also didn't come out this year. It's in 2024. So
We will not be talking about Studio Ghibli films today.
at all.
Oh, no.
Nor should we, ever. And also, overall, not including 2024 movies that released in 2024, I watched 81. So I watched even more altogether.
Crazy.
Last year, I hit 30 that came out in 2023. And overall, I did 56. So I had a pretty large uptick there in 2024. So, yeah, same thing, the best movie. Yeah, we're going to talk about Borderlands, unfortunately, here in a moment, Peter. But if y'all are ready, we can get to our list. Philline, we're going to have Philline go first because she saw a little bit more than me, and then I will go. And we're going to go pretty much in segments of 10 to kind of rattle off these lower tier films. And then when we get to our top 25, we're going to talk about them a little bit more individually. So, Eric, if you want to get to Philline's list, we'll go to her.
Yeah, I'll pull it up. So Philline's going to go from 58. She saw 58 films today. Going to go from 58
today
this year.
It was a long day.
A long day. But yeah, no, so you saw 58 movies. We're going to go from 58 to 51 for Philline, and I am going to use the share screen function effectively. Don't know. We'll find out. But yeah.
We ball.
Let's put it up.
Look at that.
Okay, there we go.
I'm killing the game.
Look at that.
I didn't know that would work, so gonna try my best here to keep up this energy. Philline, take it away. These are, I'm assuming, bad movies. So tell us all about it, because I have not seen any of these, and Phil, I think, has only seen like 2.
Okay. So I am just going to go off really quick. I'm going to read just one sentence reviews I found on Letterboxd on how I feel about these movies. 58, Madam Web. Movies are amazing. They can be anything, even this. So that is Madam Web. 57 was The Deliverance. Only thing I can say is Glenn Close says, "I can smell your nappy pussy." That sums up the movie. Next. Tyler Perry's Divorce in the Black. Megan Good will always be bad. I mean that in a loving way. And Tyler Perry movies will always be bad. I mean that in the way that it is. Next. House of Spoils. A lot of things here don't make sense at all. Sums up that movie. Next is Argyle. What did I read here? Did I find one here?
An argument can be made. You've already spent too much time talking about Argyle, and you haven't really...
There you go. Thank you, Eric. That is all I need to say.
For the record, the trailer came out, and Phil said, "I want to watch this," and I immediately said, "This is going to be one of the worst films of the year."
That is what I was going to say. I'm very glad that I saw that movie, only because I'm glad the trailers can stop playing in the movie theater. So, there you go. Don't Move, a horror movie. It is just a Netflix time pass. I don't know anything that happened in that movie. Very bad. Subservience. The Megan sequel is a lot hornier than I expected. And then The Strangers. That was extremely underwhelming. And that is my 58 through 51.
I saw Subservience. It's like a 25-minute YouTube movie.
Gotta stop doing that. At least you didn't put it on your list. I do appreciate that.
No, there's none of those are on my list. They should be, because I've seen them.
No. Haven't. It's not the same.
Yeah, I think I've even outside of the two that I've seen, I've only heard of like three of these other ones: Subservience, The Strangers, and then The Deliverance. I haven't even heard of the other two or the other three. Have you, Eric?
I've heard of all of these films, except for House of Spoils and Divorce in the Black. Tyler Perry's, that would be why. Did not know about those two. Everything else I was aware of. Movies that I had no intention of watching. I heard The Strangers is absolutely awful. I enjoyed, and I don't know if this is the original one, but the one I remember, quite a few years back. I enjoyed that movie very much, but never kept up with the franchise, I guess. Don't Move, I heard like interesting things about, but it's like another movie on Philline's list that we've talked about that'll come up here towards the bottom that I heard was just underwhelming. And then, do I really need to say much about Argylle, The Deliverance, Madam Web? These are all just going to be at the bottom of every list. I think Subservience I saw a little bit about, but I didn't know if it was good or not. Not surprised to hear it's not good.
I will say for The Deliverance, I was talking to Eric about watching this movie, thinking that he wasn't going to take me seriously, but then he started taking me seriously that he was going to watch it. I was like, oh my God, please do not watch this movie. It's so bad. And then I would like to argue that Afraid, which is an AI movie, would be the last on my list because I didn't finish it because it is absolutely terrible. So...
Also, hello, Briar. Welcome to the stream. Good to hear from you, buddy. Are you going to be at Brick City next weekend? Are we going to see you there? Please let us know. But yeah, Eric, if we were ready, we can get to my bottom five. So Briar actually just brought up a little precursor there. I feel like the Borderlands is worse than Madam Web. Well, let's see. Look at that. My bottom five. And this changed pretty recently. I would say within the last month, where I swapped Borderlands and Madam Web. Neither are good, by the way. I'm not making a case for Madam Web. It's still number 54, but the Borderlands movie, totally lifeless. Nobody in that film knew what they were doing, including the directors and everybody that was involved. Should be pretty ashamed. Madam Web, like Philline said, terrible, terrible film. And now that the Sony Marvel Universe is dead, we can all forget that this ever happened. Atlas, which was a Netflix film, J-Lo, Sterling K. Brown, Simu Liu. Basically, if Titanfall 2 made a movie and it was just devoid of any heart and soul, Lift, Kevin Hart needs to... Oh, look at that. Kevin Hart needs to stop trying to be an action hero. You are not an action hero. And then Argylle. Listen, I've paid for Argylle. I understand what I did. I trusted Matthew Vaughn. I shouldn't have done that. But with that cast... should have at least bare minimum been a 2.5, and it was not. I'm pretty sure I gave it a 1.5. All these are a 1.5 or lower. I think Borderlands I gave a half a star, which is the lowest grade that I can possibly give on Letterboxd. But yeah, sadly, not too much going on year end. Have so much to catch up on. Yeah, no worries. Hopefully, we'll catch you at Collective or Bold this year. You know where we will be. So, but yeah, that's my bottom five.
Yeah, I mean, is there really anything to say? It's kind of startling to look at. So again, when you say you watched more movies than me, I think we need to be careful with that. Because did you really? did you really? I just chose not to watch these five for obvious reasons. I feel like we both watched 50 if you think about it.
Listen, decisions were made, and am I going to learn from this? No.
Okay. Philline, any thoughts on any of these films other than Argylle and Madam Web?
I would like to argue that Borderlands is both Peter and Phil's favorite movie. I bought them all the merch for it, so I don't know what they're talking about.
No.
Yep. I didn't mean to show the boy in the hearing. Yep. Best movie ever, Borderlands by Peter. So that's where we're at. Okay, enough of that. Let's actually now pick up, and I guess I'll start which means then I'll be the first to go to wrap up my list. Phil, we'll do maybe you next, and then we'll leave Phil in for last.
Sounds good.
Guest of honor. All right. So we are going to jump into my list, and now we are going to go by tens. I'm going to start discussing these films. We're going to go very slowly. If we didn't make this clear at the beginning, we're going to go very quickly at the beginning of this in our bottom tier. Once we hit 25, so once we hit 30, we're going to go by 5 until we get to 25, and then we're going to just movie by movie pretty much at that point. Really to give those top films a little bit more discussion. These bottom ones, there's really not much more than a couple sentences to really say, and I think that speaks to all 3 of our lists. So, without further ado, my bottom films of the year, starting with my worst
Eric,
film.
did you say ado?
With further ado. What was the other word I said that you made fun of me?
No,
for?
I meant your number 50. Did you say...
Oh, ado?
Fully
ado?
Oh my god.
Man, so I know we said we were only going to say like a sentence. I think I'm going to spend most of my time on the Joker. I watched this, and for context, I watched this after watching A Real Pain. So I watched a really good movie that's going to be much higher on my list beforehand, and I walked into this one saying, you know what? I know it's going to probably be in my bottom half, but is it really as bad as people say? Yes. Yes, it is. 100%. No hesitation. This movie is very dead. It's very lifeless. It's dull. It's boring. And I think the biggest crime is that it is a musical. If you're going to bring Lady Gaga on, let her belt some songs. I'm not saying it has to be fun, but let her actually sing. If you saw the trailer and you kind of heard their little whispering singing to each other that they were doing in the trailer, they do that the whole fucking movie. Joaquin Phoenix, awful. Again, they both only really have one song in the whole film that even resembles anything that you would expect when hearing that something's a musical. And the movie's just not fun to watch at all. There's nothing interesting going on. There's nothing intriguing that got you into the first one. It's pretty much a big fuck you to everyone who enjoyed the first Joker. And that seems to be the running gag, is that I think they actually made this movie with hate, that they had to do it because the studio made them, and the first film was so successful. It really does feel like a vendetta, and I felt offended, honestly, watching this film. The rest of these are going to be very, very quick. Trap, Josh Hartnett's the only saving grace here. It should be noted, Joker, I gave a 1.5. My lowest score, I don't typically go under 2. Trap got a 2 for Josh Hartnett, and Josh Hartnett possibly alone. M. Night Shyamalan, not my cup of tea already. This movie, extremely obnoxious. So many reasons to discuss that. I'm sure it's going to come up on list a little bit later. I'll leave it for that. Despicable Me 4, this franchise really has lost all of its luster. It seemed like it kind of came back a little bit with the Minions movie the year or two prior. No, this franchise is dead. It has nothing to offer other than to children. Ghostbusters Frozen Empire completely went in the reverse direction of Ghostbusters Afterlife prior to it. I never enjoyed Ghostbusters like a hardcore fan, but I've always appreciated it. This movie, not much to offer. Same thing with Beetlejuice. If you are a fan of either of those two franchises, there's probably more here to chew on than there was for me. A Quiet Place Day 1. I have not actually seen fully the other two A Quiet Place movies. I thought it'd be like an interesting place to start. Didn't really enjoy this one. I thought there'd be more action. No, it was very quiet. I saw the TV Glow. I want to be very careful with this. I really went out of my way to see this because I heard so many good things. And if this movie speaks to you, I get it. It was not for me at all. Monkey Man, also a hot take here. Not a movie for me either. The Return, I watched this solely because I'm into Epic the Musical, and it had Ray Fiennes in it as Odysseus, specifically when he makes it home to Ithaca, and there's like this revenge or like violence that happens in him trying to take over his kingdom again. All of the things the trailer kind of promised didn't really come into fruition here. This movie ultimately was just something that's probably going to be put on in schools when you want to talk about the Odyssey or the end of the Odyssey. Otherwise, I don't know why it's really in theaters. And finally, 10 movies, a long time when you spend 20 minutes talking about Joker. Gladiator 2. I went into this hopeful that I'd have a good time, and was I somewhat entertained? Sure I was, but not enough. There really isn't a need for this particular sequel, and I really struggled with this film and its existence. So with that being said, those are my films, and I just thought about the fact that going over scores is going to be a chore. All of these movies scored a 2.5, other than Trap, who I gave a 2 to, and Joker, which I gave a 1.5. So there you go. There's my spiel. Phil or Philline, take it away.
First, let's welcome in Jay from Super Bracket Bros to the chat. Thank you so much for hanging out with us for a little bit here this evening. You can actually hear Jay on Super Bracket Bros here on the 2025 Foresight and Predictions episode, which, Eric, as I was editing, we didn't really make any predictions. It was mostly foresight, just things that we were anticipating. So that's why we covered it on the Thursday Thought that came out here today, if you guys want to go check that out. But, yeah, I wasn't going to see Despicable Me for Beetlejuice like I thought about, but again, between that and Ghostbusters, two franchises I don't really care about, and I have made a decision as we talk about some movies that are in the lower half of my list. In 2025, one thing I am going to do is not spend time watching movies from franchises that I don't really care about. Your Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, your Transformers, your Sonics, to give you a little precursor. I'm done with that. That is not something I am going to do in 2025. I could have sworn you've seen the original Quiet Place, but yeah, day one is an interesting place to start. Philline and I told this to Eric. Trap is a great time with friends. Me, Philline, my daughter, and Peter and my brother-in-law saw it in theaters, and we were laughing our ass off. It is not a good movie, but it is fun. It is a fun time watching it with friends. And that's what I'll say about that. Monkey Man, Eric and I also saw in theaters together, and we're just really baffled by the response to it, as it will show up again here very shortly. Didn't get to see Gladiator 2, and I had never heard of The Return. So, but that's what I got for you for your bottom 10. Philline, what do you think?
I only saw 1, 2, 3 of those movies on his bottom. Hot take, Beetlejuice. I actually have never seen the original, so that's on me. So I didn't pick it up. Trap, just like he said, you'll see it later on my list. Great movie to watch with a great group. You also see Quiet Place a bit higher on my list than Eric's, because I had seen the other one, so I thought that because of the pacing of the other two, that this one was a perfect way to start. And I did think about watching The Joker too, only because I just wanted to add another movie to the bottom, but I didn't want to succumb myself to that.
I wanted to form my own opinion. Good call. I say, again, if it's under a 2, it's pretty much stay away from these films.
Yeah.
A 2, I really am going to actively dislike, and I do agree that being with friends probably would have bumped it up from an entertainment standpoint. I did watch it by myself. But the 2.5s here, I could understand if there's some appeal. Monkey Man is the big one. I saw the TV Glow, another one that it's in their top list, which is, I think, crazy. For many reasons we're not going to get into, but Monkey Man specifically we'll talk when Phil goes over it. Monkey Man was a movie that just disoriented me, and I know that it was a first-time directorial movie as well, but it just, there was a lot of things from the cinematics and the filmography that I just didn't vibe with. And this movie also is falsely advertised as like John Wick-esque, and it's very much not that.
No, not at all. Not at all. But Eric, if you want to bring up my bottom 10, or my next 10, we can start there. We'll see some repeat appearances here.
Yeah. And I'll try to do a little extra zoom. No, that's too much zoom. Yep. Okay, so there we go.
No worries. Joker. So here's what I'll also say to tag on to what Eric has said about the Joker, part 2. The Joker, other than the Borderlands, is the only movie in the bottom that I hated. So these other movies are just like, yeah, this was stupid. Atlas was like, Atlas, Rift, Argyle, Madam Web, Borderlands, those all go, it's whatever, they're bad movies. But the Joker 2, like you said, Eric, it's like Todd Phillips just wanted to kick us in the dick and be like, oh, you like this character? You like the DC universe? Well, I don't give a shit. Here's what I want to make. And, the studio made me use the Joker and Harley Quinn in order for this film to come out. So just really, really bad overall. I would, if I could, I did kind of move this around a little bit. So I know, Eric, this is a screenshot, but Self-Reliance it was a festival movie that came out in 2023. It released on Hulu in 2024. And, with this cast, like between Anna Kendrick and Jake Johnson, I was like very much intrigued by the premise of this movie. And I got to it and got through it. And I was like, I felt nothing. It's got a really bad ending. Yeah, I agree, Jay. Wanted it to be better than it was. And it's just kind of a baffling film. If you were to ask me to like explain what happens in the movie, I would not be able to do it. Ricky Stenicki, I'm going to pair these two together. If in 2024, or heading into 2024, you told me there would be 2 straight to Amazon movies that came out where John Cena carried and everybody else was terrible, I would have, and you gave me a nickel for each time, I would have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot of nickels, but it's crazy that it happened twice. John Cena is great in Jackpot and Ricky Stenicki. Everything else around those films is terrible. Aquafina, obviously, in Jackpot, no good. Simu Liu is also in Jackpot, so he's in the bottom quite a bit here. I need him to make better decisions for this career, please. And Ricky Stenicki is just one of those dumb bro comedies, whatever. If is awful. It has a really good cast in terms of voicing all these imaginary friends, but no fun at all. The Beekeeper, I think Jason Statham says like maybe 5 sentences the entire movie and then beats up everybody for 2 hours, which normally is a working premise, but here it just does not. Moana 2, maybe this is my first controversial one. Moana 2 did everything in its power to destroy the legacy of the original Moana. I'm going as far as to just acknowledge that it doesn't exist, or to not acknowledge its existence whatsoever. The story is bad. The new characters are stupid. It's got one of the worst Disney songs ever made in it. And they should have just kept it a TV show where you could decide whether or not you want to watch 8 episodes of a waste of time, or waste your time watching 8 episodes. Upgraded is a rom-com. I'm a big fan of Camila Mendes, and I think there are really big things in her future in terms of her performances. I think she's really solid in this, and I think the message for this movie was good. But as far as a rom-com, it falls very short. Monkey Man, here's where Monkey Man pops up on my list, and like Eric mentioned, in terms of like the shaky cam, it is disorienting. And this is a film that I want to go back and possibly watch again a little bit later. I keep telling myself that, but I just haven't done it because I didn't enjoy myself, which is crazy because this movie is very high on other people's lists. But I'm sure we'll get some we did get some feedback on that in terms of other people that really enjoyed that movie. And this is where Trap shows up. Listen, is Trap a good movie? Absolutely not. Is it a good time? Fuck yeah, it is. So Trap is still in my bottom, third of films that I watch, but obviously higher than where Eric ranked it. I believe these are all 2.5s between, Trap, Monkey Man, and Upgraded 2.5s. Moana 2, Jackpot, The Beekeeper, Self-Reliance, If, Ricky Stenicki, all 2s, and I gave Joker a 1.5.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. This is again an interesting part of your list of movies because many of these I wouldn't have watched. Self-Reliance is interesting. Wasn't one that was on my radar a lot, but I did hear of it. I didn't know if it was good or not. Ricky Stenicki, if I wanted to waste time and put it on and maybe get a couple laughs, I'd put it on. But again, I wouldn't have made it to 50 movies if I was making those type of decisions. Or maybe it would be easier to. I don't know, really. If I heard is dreadful. It's very unoriginal. And The Beekeeper, not much to say there. Same thing with Jackpot. What I will say about Moana 2, it's a little bit higher on my list. Peter, boycott the live action of Moana. I kind of agree with that. I was in a good mood when I walked into it, and I didn't expect very much of it. But I 100% agree, whatever the scores of between the three of us are, I think we all walked away knowing, wow, that was a disappointment. especially compared to the first one. And I think the fact that, again, it'll come up multiple times, I'm sure the fact that it was originally going to be a TV series and then it got morphed into a movie, you can very much feel that. But Disney is clearly, with its movie sequels for their beloved animated films, they are going a specific direction. And I think it's time with films like Moana 2 that we accept that. And yeah, that's really it. Upgraded, not my vibe, and Monkey Man and Trap, I kind of said enough about. Philline, what are you feeling here about this group of films?
It's interesting to see like a lot of movies that we all haven't seen and movies that we have, just because it just jumbles up the list a lot. A couple of these movies I hadn't even heard, like I'd never heard of Rookie Stanicky or Self-Reliance, so that's that's interesting.
There was not to cut you off, but there was a image floating around on social media of John Cena in this outfit that you see in the poster. He's in a schoolgirl outfit, and everyone was like, what the fuck is this from? And it turned out to be from this movie, so that's why I checked that out. And that's also Zac Efron in the poster, if you can't tell, but he is also wasted in this too, because I like Zac Efron.
Again, it's at the worst a really bad film, but at best it's at least, I guess, a fun time.
A good time, yeah. And then it's interesting that you have 2 movies on here with Awkwafina on it, which is way more movies that you should be watching with Awkwafina in it.
Is she in If?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, we should also leave that behind in 2025.
Yeah, let that go. It's time. Close that chapter. So I'm excited to see how, because a couple of those movies do fall into this list of 10 that we have coming up for me as well.
Well, let's do it. Let's see what we got.
All right.
Tell us about it.
Oh, babes, that bums me out.
So number 50, I have a movie called Outside. That is a Netflix movie, but is actually a Filipino movie, so it is fully in Tagalog. I watched it solely because it was a Tagalog movie and it was zombies, so horror movie, Filipino, sign me up. Very trauma-centric of like Filipino culture, which was good, but just not good at the same time. So was not excited about that film. Babes, I think I'm in the minority, honestly, with this film. I was reading a lot of the reviews on Letterboxd, and a lot of people really do love this film. I don't think the humor was for me. I feel like a bad woman because a lot of women love this film, and I absolutely hated it. I thought it was very Amy Schumer-esque humor, and that's not my type of humor at all. So unfortunately, it did not work for me. Watchers, another M. Night Shyamalan movie. I think between the 2 M. Night Shyamalan movies I watched, this was the worst of the 2. I knew how it was going to end. I watched it anyway, and it was as disappointing as I thought it was going to be. Upgraded, along with Phil, I really liked the main actress. I thought that it was trying to go in the direction of Devil Wears Prada, but did not have the love and just the charm of Devil Wears Prada. It wasn't anywhere close. Moana 2, I did not enjoy this film, unfortunately. I was excited for this. I didn't watch any of the trailers, and I just wish I had, because I probably wouldn't have watched it. And the music was bad. The movie experience was also bad. We had terrible kids sitting in our section, so that probably made that review even worse for me. Violent Nature at 45. I was so excited about this film, guys. Like, this film is in the POV of the killer. So I was like, man, a new horror take. I'm going to see something different. I don't know what I expected, but this man walks so slow. He walks like, like a snail.
A Marvel Rivals character.
It had awesome kills. Like, the best kill was someone literally turning into like a human pretzel, and it was awesome. I loved the kills in this film, but he moved so slow. And I don't know what I was expecting, because that makes sense for a film in the perspective of a killer. I've watched Halloween many times, and Michael Myers moves so freaking slow. So I was not impressed by that. Same thing as Phil, he warned me not to watch it. I watched it anyway. Bad. Caddo Lake. Everybody loves this film. Another hot take for me. Everyone did love this film. I think I was too dumb to understand. I had to look up the ending because I did not understand it. It's a really cool concept, but if you look away for a second in this film, you are completely lost, and I could not get behind that. And again, I had to look it up on how it ended. Sonic 3, sorry, Briar. I was not a fan of this film. Also, terrible movie experience. We got popcorn thrown on us, so probably lowered my score by a lot. But also, I love Tails and Knuckles, and they just were not there enough for me. They are the heart of why I love the second film, and they just were not represented enough. The two Jim Carreys creeped me out. I didn't like it. I'm sorry. He's phenomenal, but creeped me out. I couldn't do it. So that is why it's so low on my list.
Briar,
Sorry.
there's no way you were in an IMAX theater for Sonic 3. There's honestly, I just wanted to interrupt. There's no way. But, Philline, yeah, continue.
Honestly, like, if it was the one here that we went to, I mean, those seats are falling apart, so maybe...
That's true.
You said best experience ever,
For that
so I guess
space
not.
movie.
No, it's Interstellar. It's one of the best films ever made.
Doing that. Stop doing that. And before you get to your last one, we've been far enough from the popcorn incident that I guess I could ask now, because it's come up every time that we bring up Sonic 3. Was it an accident or was it intentional? Was this a
No, it
hate
was
crime?
100% intentional, because they threw
Definitely
candy first.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate.
I hope those kids had a terrible Christmas. I can't say what I
Yeah.
really want to say.
That's fair. Oh, Georgia's version of IMAX for context. So, all right, yeah. And then you have one other film, so I'll let you get back to it. Sorry.
Last one is Sweethearts. It was a Max original. It was very cute. It was a rom-com, very just original rom-com. Rom-coms make me feel good. This movie made me feel good. That was it.
Yeah, Babes being low bums me out. It is something I wanted to see in theaters. I'll probably check it out on streaming. I'm not gonna like pay to rent it, but once it's like free on Hulu or something, I'll probably check it out. It might already be actually now. But yeah, as far as the trailer and the premise of the movie, it looked good. I'm a big fan of the two main actresses, Alana and Michelle. But yeah, when you came back and saw it, did you see this in theaters? You went to go to a theater to see this, didn't you?
No,
No?
it was
Oh,
on
okay.
streaming. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll have to go check that out eventually. Watchers, another film I saw in 2024. It's like 25 minutes. Yeah, it didn't look very good. And then it also, like, the amount of hype around the violent nature, it's a bummer that turned out to be not so great. But yeah, and then the other ones I've either seen.
To be fair,
or
Eric
haven't heard
did warn me. He did warn me that movie was not going to be
say
good.
that.
It's a good premise, but yeah, just didn't. It sounds like it didn't execute. So, and then yeah, I've never heard of the other ones on here. Sweethearts, Caddo Lake, Outside. I don't know what those are.
Yeah. There's a lot of films. Again, I think towards the bottom of our list, because when I was looking at the list, I have seen 44% of Philline's list, and I've seen 57% of yours. So I figured towards the bottom, based off of how the top half of our list shaped out, I think the bottom half here is going to have a lot of movies that all of us have had a much different experience with, and that'll lead to some interesting rankings. Like, I have Moana 2 higher. Again, I'm not a Moana defender. I just have it a little bit higher. Sonic 3, I will defend my rating for it because it's definitely higher than this. But what I will say is I have, since recording my review for it, lowered my score. So I have, as I've walked away from the film, really recognized that I had a good time, but did I really have a great time? Not really. And the further removed from that movie I get and that franchise, they're just okay movies. It's popcorn flick. And I think you gotta take that for what it is. I think I prefer the first Sonic, and definitely 2. Now that I've left the theater, I thought Sonic 3 was the best, but upon reflection, I don't know that that's the case, honestly. I think there was a lot of lacking from the characters you mentioned. And I also really just enjoyed Jim Carrey in particular. But yeah, no, definitely he was unhinged. He was unhinged for sure. So yeah, with that being said, I think that brings it now back to me, unless I missed anything.
Nope.
So let me go ahead.
40 to 31, I mean.
Yeah, so a couple films. Now, this is where you guys aren't going to be happy with me, and I just have to speak my truth, and I just want to actually provide context, because I told Phil this. I don't think Philline knows. I saw Real Pain, and then I saw Joker. Real Pain, spoiler alert, in my top third of movies that I saw this year. Really enjoyed it. Joker, the worst movie I saw this year, and I know a 2 to a 1.5 doesn't seem like a big difference. It is to me. So it wasn't even close between that and Trap. All I needed the next movie to do was entertain me. And I thought it was a lock. You guys, where it is on your list and what people have said, thought it was a lock. However, The Fall Guy was not a good time. And I gotta speak my truth. I have to speak my truth. I've never had... So Corey was watching it with me. My wife was watching it. There we go, Jay. There we go. My wife was watching it with me, and she typically doesn't ask my opinion, because I don't like being asked my opinion mid-movie. I like to form one. But she had to ask me, because she then followed up the ask with, "You look miserable." And I didn't think this movie was charming. I didn't think it was funny. I think it's grossly miscast. From Ryan Gosling to Emily Blunt to Aaron Taylor-Johnson. I think they have absolutely no chemistry, and this movie somewhat hinges on it. It's not an homage to stunt people, in my opinion. I thought that's the movie I was getting. It's not even that. I really just did not enjoy The Fall Guy. I cannot express it enough. I don't know what movie you guys saw, but I will also mention that I think comedies... And I guess you would put this as a comedy, because I don't know what else it would be. It feels like it wanted to have the benefits of being a parody film about stunt people, but it didn't want to be a parody movie. And that's what I watched. I tend to grade those a little bit harder. And that's my last 2.5 on my list. So I don't personally recommend it. The next movie is My Hero Academia. I'm not going to talk much about that. I love My Hero. I eat that shit up. It's a 3. It's a very average movie, and compared to World Heroes Mission, which Phil really hated, I think you would at least enjoy this. But again, totally understand you're not going to theaters for it. But if you watch some of those shithole movies that you just watched, you could have found time for this. Orion in the Dark was one I saw earlier on in the year. I gave it a 3 out of 5 because I really think that this particular movie has not only really good animation, but at the beginning has a really good story base. Also, the humor is working, but this movie makes a change about halfway through that was really odd. And the way they unfolded the ending, I didn't really like it. Moana 2. I've already defended my point of it being a little bit higher than you guys. I was in a really good mood that day. It didn't really do much for me from the music standpoint. I thought the music was fairly weak, other than the big hitter, Beyond. Everything else was pretty much a miss. Can I get a Chee-hoo? Man, I've said that a couple times in the last couple days. I don't feel good about it, personally. But Moana 2, what else is there to say that hasn't been a massive disappointment? The Man in the White Van, me and Phil got a pre-screener to see this, which was really cool. Gave this a 3 out of 5. Thought it was a nice kind of B horror film that I wouldn't have normally watched. So it got us out of our comfort zone. We both watched it and thought positively of it by the end. We also had this Shadow Strays. I watched this recently. Everybody was making a comparison. It's an Indonesian film, I believe, that people were comparing to The Raid. Phil, you and me really enjoyed The Raid. This movie, 3 out of 5, has a lot of vibes, but it doesn't really execute very well beyond just the gore and the violence. So I think there's a story here they wanted to tell that I just didn't resonate with, and this movie just became a little too over the top with the kills. And if that's all your movie's going to really offer, I don't know that there's much more to say. Godzilla x Kong, New Empire. You know what? Monsters, kaijus, fighting. That's the movie. 3 out of 5. Long legs. I walked in a long leg. Yeah, I know it's a little bit higher, Phil. You could have your time to talk about Godzilla in your top 10. I don't want to do this now. Long Legs was a movie that I don't normally watch. I do not normally watch it. Nicolas Cage was getting a lot of hype for his performance. Watching the trailer, I kind of thought it would vibe with me potentially. 3 out of 5, not a bad film. I get the appeal. This movie really, I think, gets weirder by the second. It doesn't really fully execute the things that it's promising, and I think it's juggling a little bit too much. Also, I think this movie lives and dies by Nick Cage's performance, and his performance was a little too eccentric for me, for what this movie was trying to accomplish. Transformers 1, fairly low compared to many other people. 3 out of 5, I didn't hate this movie. I see why people like it, and I think this is a great introduction to Transformers and what can be done in animated film. Don't like the character designs from the trailer to when I saw the film. I think the animation is average. I didn't see anything that blew me away. And honestly, the voice acting kind of carried this movie down. There's a lot of celebrities in this, and other than Brian Tyree Henry for Megatron, everyone else, average, okay. And finally, Sonic 3, which I have reduced down to a 3 from my original 3.5 rating. I probably went a little bit too high in my initial thoughts as I was kind of reworking my list and really reflecting. I don't think they executed Shadow as much as they could have as far as like the story. If you're really going to make that the center point, I think 2 Dr. Robotniks muddied the runtime a little bit, and I think maybe 1 too many gags were being done. Tails, Knuckles, again, characters that we love. We don't really get to see a lot of. Sonic, I didn't really buy into his arc on this, and I'm really just tired of seeing humans in this film. So this is still fairly low, but a positive score and a 3 out of 5. So let's run it back and have you guys roast me about the Fall Guy, because I know it's coming. And I wanted to enjoy it. I did.
Just so you know, Joyanne, you should still watch The Fall Guy, because it's a lot of fun.
100%, yes.
It is a lot of fun. Gosling is really good in it, and Emily Blunt is really good in it. So it's crazy that you thought that it wasn't a good time, because I really loved those characters. It was fun to see in theaters, and I very much enjoyed it. We'll talk about it a little bit more later. So it's crazy that it's this low on your list. I remember when you talked about A Ride in the Dark, we were talking about, obviously how, other studios are kind of like, lapping Disney, and also other films are going to be nominated, for Best Picture. It's not just going to be all Disney movies anymore. But when you came back with a kind of like a lackluster feedback, I was like, yeah, it's probably one that I will skip in terms of that. And in terms of animated films, I'll talk more about The Man in the White Van here in a little bit. Shadow Strays, I don't think that's one that I am familiar with. And then Long Legs is one that I had circled, where I was like, okay, maybe I'll sit down and finally watch this, and it just didn't happen in 2025. You guys know how I am with certain horror tropes that I am and I cannot tolerate, so I just decided against it. And you know what? Like Eric said, I will save what I have to say about the New Empire for later, much later in the episode. And Transformers 1, I agree with what Eric said. It's a little bit higher on my list, but again, like I mentioned in the beginning, like these are just franchises that I didn't really have a lot of affinity for when I was growing up. So going forward, I'm just going to skip them altogether to avoid upsetting people. So, and I'll talk about Sonic here in a moment.
Yeah. And one thing I'll mention here as well, Philline, before you jump in, is Shadow Strays. I had a decision to make talking about movies I didn't get to watch this year. Between that, because it was on Netflix and it was easily accessible, or renting a movie called Kill, which I believe is an Indian film. Correct me if it's, I know there's a couple different differences between Bolly and Tollywood type stuff. And as an example, I wish I saw that movie instead, because I'm hearing really great things. And it was a movie earlier on my radar that I didn't get to. So that was a bummer for me. Philline, yeah, I've got 10 movies here. What are your thoughts?
Fall Guy, crazy. I watched that movie at home, and I watched it again the next day because I thoroughly enjoyed it. And you'll see it pretty high up in my list, actually. Long Legs, we've had talks about the different ways that me and you view horror. So that will also be very high up on my list that I'll talk about later. When you did say you were going to watch it, I was like, oh, I don't know how that's going to go. So I'm not surprised that it is where it is on your list. Yeah, Transformers.
For context, I watched that alone too, like alone in a theater
early in the morning.
It was like 10 a.m. Between this and Nosferatu, which I've come around on. We're going to talk about that. Not as high as you, but I don't know what I'm doing watching horror movies at 10 a.m. by myself or on Christmas
Day. You
Day.
and like another guy, like just one other person.
I have no business making these type of decisions. Here we are.
I'm pretty sure you watched it before me, which is even crazier.
I understand. Both of them. Yeah, I get it.
But yeah, you'll see Transformers 1 kind of in the same feel as you were feeling. I actually haven't heard of I don't watch My Hero anymore. Sorry. I hope you wore your pajamas to the theater though. And
It's canon now.
Stop telling people that. I don't have them.
Joanne spam. Joanne's our moderator. If you could let everybody know in the chat that Eric has My Hero pajamas. Thank you very much.
Deku specifically. Deku's pajamas.
With the hood and the feeties.
Yes. But that is all I have to say on those.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, well let's go ahead and move on to our next list, and where I had Fall Guy, Phil had a similar film that pretty much the whole world that he didn't like as much. So yeah, let's let him get to that point and take it away.
Thanks so much there, Joanne, once again, letting everybody know. But yes, here is where Sonic is on my list, and I know, I get it, but Philline has already spoken about a lot about why this was disappointing. Phil, where does Spy Family go? What? It was only a matter of time before Spy Family was mentioned. Thank you so much, Breyer. Maybe we'll talk about it a little bit later. No, I didn't see the Spy Family movie, but Sonic 3, and just like what you guys said, like I am just so happy to have Jim Carrey in our space and have him around. And it is just a bummer that I did not enjoy this. Keanu Reeves' Shadow to me was also underwhelming. He didn't have a gun enough in the movie either. Like I wanted to see him like just like toting a pistol the whole time. They took that away from us, and it just isn't a franchise that I'm going to pay attention to anymore going forward. Sophie, Supin Jaha, if you see this, sorry, because I know it was your movie of the year, but it is just did not do it for me. Suncoast is a film that I had circled. Another festival darling, Nico Parker. You guys might recognize her from The Last of Us. Also a bunch of other projects. Laura Linney, Woody Harrelson. Pretty solid movie. This is when we're getting to like the 3 range, like with like what Eric had just mentioned. So it is a pretty good movie in terms of coming of age stories, but there were so many good coming of age stories that came out this year. This one just kind of got lost in the shuffle. Musica, which is another place where Camila Mendes will show up. This is Rudy Mancuso. This is his directorial debut. You guys might remember him from like the Vine days. And it's a very interesting premise. It's another rom-com, but it does a lot in term with music, as the name of the movie is called, but it does a lot of things with like rhythm and that type of storytelling, which I thought was pretty interesting. As a rom-com and a movie overall, it was okay. Those two are dating in real life, so I thought they would have a little bit more chemistry that like jumped off the page. But this is where the man in the white van pops up for me. Once again, really cool opportunity to interview Warren Skeels, who is a Jacksonville native. So that was really, really cool. And excited to see more from him. There were a lot of really good decisions made in terms of the cinematography in this. And I think maybe with a few story tweaks, Eric, we agree that it probably could have been 3.5 or higher. This is where Mean Girls pops up on my list. I was very underwhelmed with the film adaptation of this musical that I love. Did not like who they cast as Katie, who, the Katie in the musical is a powerhouse, and the girl, I think her name is Angerie Rice, I think that's her name, just did not do it for me. However, Renee Rapp and Ali Carvalho are fantastic in this movie. But outside of that, it was just it was tough for me to separate my love for the musical and then watching this adaptation. This is where Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes shows up for me. Now, if Liz were in this, my daughter, she would probably have this movie as number one. This movie changed her life. She absolutely loves it, and she is excited to watch the rest of the films as well as the original movies that came out in over the last 15, 20 years. So, but for me, I didn't really like the main character. We'll see how it goes going forward, because they can, even though it is my greatest fear that this is going to actually happen to us, the movies are still very solid. Furiosa, this is another movie I'm sure a lot of people have quite a bit higher on their list, but I loved this is a movie, a series that I just got introduced to in 2024 in terms of Fury Road, and that movie rocks. It rules. I also have a list of all the movies I watched in 2024, not just new ones, and that's pretty high up there in terms of what I saw. But this one just kind of underwhelmed me, and it was, again, just okay. We Live in Time. This is one that I was like sure was going to knock it out of the park, and it ended up being just okay and very predictable, even though, like, knowing what kind of story it is, I'm sure a lot of us could figure out what was going to happen in terms of this type of story. Andrew Garfield and Florence Pugh, I would love to see them in another project in the future, because their chemistry is off the charts, and I think they're just really good together, not only on screen but also off. So, but in terms of another rom-com-esque movie, it just kind of fell short. Carry On. This movie is full of plot holes, doesn't make any sense, but god damn it, it was a fun time. I like Taron Egerton, and give me more evil Jason Bateman. I am all about it. This was I think it is now trending as like one of Netflix's most successful films ever, like a top 10, and it's worth your time, I think, with family and friends, because it was just a whole lot of fun, even though, once again, it is just full of terrible plot holes. And much to the chagrin of my co-hosts here for this is where Wicked shows up. It's too long. It is color graded as if someone took a picture right into the sun, and you can barely see what is happening. But it's still a good time. I still gave it a 3. I will say, getting farther away from it, more and more I wish I had just seen the stage play first and then watched the movie. Am I going to see the second one, day one? Yeah, absolutely I am. But I just cannot get over, in terms of their Hollywood personalities, I think, well, Ariana Grande, maybe not so much as a person. I've heard really great stories about Cynthia Erivo, but in terms of Ariana Grande and those two together doing press, two of the most kind of insufferable people in terms of just watching them talk to media in press tour history. I'm not looking forward to having to do it again, all over again in a year. But in terms of a movie, like, it was still fine. I don't think Michelle Yeoh is very good in this either. Jeff Goldblum is kind of just reading his lines. But Jonathan Bailey, though, has me full confidence in the Jurassic World film, which is a Rebirth film. Hopefully they put in some sort of musical number. But in terms of, like, where it sits in pop culture, I totally get it, but it just wasn't for me.
Yeah, no, so a 3 out of 5 for Wicked's crazy. In my opinion, I think Philline will jump on that. It's going to be a while till we talk about Wicked, so I'll just tackle before we talk about Wicked again. I'll just tackle that. I don't know. Wicked was a powerhouse of a film. I think it surprised a lot of people with how good it is. To not see it in the top 20, and that's being gracious, because I think top 15 minimum. Wild, way wilder of a take than me putting The Fall Guy this low, honestly. The Fall Guy went straight to DVD release like 2 weeks after. I know why now. Wicked, one of the biggest movies of the year. Sonic 3, we kind of already touched on that. No arguments there. I'll say the only films I didn't see here are Carry On, Suncoast, Musica, and Mean Girls. These are all movies that I assumed are going to be in that 3 to 3.5 range, and unless I'm really interested in, like, the potential of the film, I'm just not going to check it out. That's where I think we make different decisions on movies. as far as breaking down time, because a lot of my threes are movies that I see the appeal and I like them. I don't know if I'll really revisit them very often, but I at least like them. So when I see movies like this that like I feel like their top hit or their top potential is going to be a 3 and a 3.5, that's the reason I didn't really jump on those. What I will touch on is Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is much higher for me. I really didn't think it would ever touch anywhere near the heights of the previous trilogy. It doesn't, but I enjoyed it, and I'm excited to see what comes next. So that says a lot. Furiosa, I think, does deserve criticism. It's much higher as well for me. I did enjoy it though. It's a blast of a time. The way that George Miller makes that movie. I think this movie is at least 5 years too late. We Live in Time. I will talk about that a little bit as well. Chemistry off the charts. Story and the decisions made in this story are why it falters a little bit for me. So just a couple of opinions across the board. Philline, if you want to just jump back on the Wicked bashing, now would be a great time. And what else did you think about his 10?
I also wanted to say, whoever's watching the video, I did not choose this eyeshadow for no reason. It is pink and green. If that tells anybody where Wicked will fall on my list of movies. So this wasn't just, I was blind and doing my makeup. So can't wait to talk about that later.
You waited an hour to clarify that? That's
I did.
Stretch.
Definitely wanted to see Musica. I wish I was able to watch that. I did hear it was just okay, but I was interested in watching that. We Live in Time. You know, it's funny, when you guys were talking about this movie, I actually had never heard of it. I'd never seen any of the trailers, so I was so confused on what you guys were talking about when you guys first discussed this movie. But when you guys discussed it, just was okay. I wasn't interested in watching it. I've never seen the Fury Road movies, so wasn't really interested in Furiosa at all. But do have similar feelings of Mean Girls and Planet of the Apes, so you'll see that shortly.
All right. That's going to bring us back to me. So let's jump into it. This is where we're going to now.
Wait, I didn't go.
Oh, no. Sorry. She just stopped talking. And I was like, oh, is it my go? It is Philline's go. I was thinking we moved too fast, too. I was like, it feels like there's a lot of movies we missed. So great transition. You felt very similar about Mean Girls, Planet of the Apes, which is where your list starts. So, yeah, take it away.
So I will give a disclaimer that these movies were all pretty much a 3, all the way up to 32. So I don't know if this is really how I feel about it, or if I'm just kind of stacking my 3s all together. They were just okay. They were good movies, not bad, not great, but they're just lying in this middle gray area. So I did have Mean Girls. When I did first watch this movie, if you go back in the Discord, I think I had this a 4 or a 4.5. But after some reflection, other than Renee Rapp, it just did not do justice for the Broadway, especially after seeing Wicked and seeing how these movies can be done and still be done perfectly to the Broadway musical. The changes that they made to this movie just did not work for me. Again, I hope Liz is not watching this because I do have Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes at 39. Just same thing as Phil. I wasn't a big fan of the main character. The orangutans are always my favorite, and he wasn't in it enough for me. So this is where Transformers 1 falls. I was totally against watching this movie, but Phil and Peter both told me it was very good, so I watched it and I enjoyed it. The idea of you, rom-com, Harry Styles fanfic, if anybody's interested in seeing that type of movie. Very cute. Anne Hathaway as charming as ever. Love her. Music in the movie, good. Cute. A little weird, but cute. I saw the TV Glow. Just like Eric, I agree. Like, this movie is definitely not made for me. I understand the imagery, the horror imagery of it is beautiful. A lot of the films where they fall on my list is because of the imagery and the story, and I definitely get it, but it wasn't meant for me, so that is why I have it where it is. Hot take, I just thought Deadpool and Wolverine was okay. I like the kills, I like the gore, but just, I don't know. I don't think... I realize a lot this year that action movies are not my thing. So that is why it falls where it is. Trap, much higher than everybody else in this room. But again, I love love is a very strong word. I do not love M. Night Shyamalan, but I realize I like more of his films than I thought I did. And I just love this movie. Book of Clarence, love the topic of this movie. I love the message of this movie. It just, compared to all the other movies, that's just where it fell. Am I Okay is everything that I wanted Babes to be. And it starred Dakota Johnson, which is crazy. I watched the worst movie ever, which was Madam Web. And one of my highest movies is Dakota Johnson as part of the LGBTQ community, and that is the best Dakota Johnson in my opinion. And she was very cute in this movie. It's a very good friendship story, and I liked it. Lisa Frankenstein, cute horror movie, just cute. I think it's, I don't know which Sprouse twin is it. Is it Cole? Cole Sprouse was very cute in this. Catherine Newton, I loved her this year. She was in 2 of my favorite movies this year, and she was very cute in this. I loved it. This was a 3.5 for me, and it was a silly movie, and I enjoyed it. And any opinions on what this 10 brings?
Yeah. So Mean Girls, again, back to that point, didn't see it. Kingdom, liked it a little bit more. Transformers 1 we kind of touched on. Idea of You was a film that I figured is going to, again, be that mid-tier movie. Didn't check it out, but I was interested. Love Anne Hathaway. And from the clips I saw, there seemed to be some type of chemistry. Whether it was weird or not, a whole nother thing. It reminds me of like a much tamer version of whatever that Nicole Kidman movie that just came out was.
Baby Girl.
Which I not for me. I saw the TV Glow again. I want to mention, not only was it not my cup of tea, but Phil's brought this up ever since I've said it. I don't think Justice Smith is good in anything. So anytime I see him in anything, I've never walked away from a movie and been like, man, Justice Smith, what an actor. Never. This movie included, he plays like a teenager. He's clearly well over his 30s. Deadpool and Wolverine. I also, it's not a hot take in this room, but as Breyer has mentioned, so many bad takes tonight. I get it. Deadpool and Wolverine, you're going to hear us have it at different points in our list. I think all 3 of us will agree. It's not great, but I think it's just great by current MCU standards, and that's why people have it so high. The Book of Clarence I didn't get to check out. Wasn't familiar with Am I Okay? And Lisa Frankenstein seems like a movie purely off vibes that I would want to just check out. But that was one I never got to. But Phil, Book of Clarence is a film, just to kind of let you take back over, that you have much higher and you actually enjoyed as well. So I'm surprised I didn't get to it.
Yeah, I did. Really quick, did you like him? Did you like Justice Smith in Dungeons and Dragons?
No. I mean, not bad.
Yeah.
I don't think he's awful at everything, but I've never walked away been like, man, that role of a lifetime, only one person can play it. Couldn't imagine anyone else. What a performance. I've just never walked away from it.
It feels like Justice Smith is like a not as talented, and I like Justice Smith, but I feel like he is a not as talented Jordan Fisher. Like, they kind of live similar. Obviously, they are very different talents, but like similar. They're in that same kind of like casting bubble, and we just like Jordan Fisher is just much more talented. Like we'd like to see. I'd like to see Jordan Fisher in Jurassic World instead of.
Yeah, they're like the exact same person, except one is way more talented at their craft than the other.
Well, like, I mean, I don't know how to explain it, but anyway, look at Clarence. Yeah, that's much higher on my list. Well, not much higher. We'll talk about that again here in just a moment. It's another movie that came out in the kind of like film wasteland of like January, February. So I'm very much removed from seeing it. And since then, we've seen much better films. But I mean, anytime you get to see Lakeith Stanfield do his thing, it's outstanding. And it's a really good cast overall. A very interesting topic in terms, especially for me, somebody who has, who very much had their turn with like organized religion, not so much anymore, of course, but like going back and revisiting those stories is very interesting. The idea of You is something I thought about checking out at one point, but and just as much as I love, I'll watch Anne Hathaway like make a sandwich, but there was just like this was not something that I was interested in.
Would you watch her
seeing.
in that space movie we saw once?
She was good in the space movie.
Yeah, the space
she was
movie.
great
Philline.
in that
the
space
uncomfortable
movie.
quote unquote IMAX seat AMC.
Now on Netflix, check it out. The space movie.
Yeah, just search space movie and it'll come up.
It might.
It is like the space movie. So we'll talk about Deadpool and Wolverine more here in a moment. Briar will be even more upset. Yeah, he's in Justice Smith in Detective Pikachu. 9 out of 10 for Deadpool and Wolverine's wild. Briar, am I okay? I heard good things about Dakota Johnson's performance. So yeah, it is crazy. She has these like two polar opposite performances in 2024. And Lisa Frankenstein, I think, is that a franchise fill-in or no?
No.
I don't think so.
I
no.
can't remember if there was a kill count or not, but I haven't watched it. So, but yeah, not familiar with that. And yeah, both of you, I saw The TV Glow was a movie I circled, and I just never got to it. So, yeah, I'm kind of glad I didn't, but we'll see.
Yeah. No. And again, that movie definitely appeals to somebody, just not us. I'll head over to my list, and now we will be going by 5 to get to the top 25. And from that point, you will see what's ahead. Or maybe what I'll do is, Phil, because we kind of were talking about what it would look like. We'll just start talking about our individual movies, and then we'll recap them with the screen share. So that being said, I will show mine updated list. And this is where several films come up. Philline going to be shocked at another one. We have to talk. We have to have a conversation. You already know. We're going to have a conversation here in a minute. Abigail. Now, this is where my updates are happening. When I left Nosferatu on Christmas Day, I said, I'm going to have to come on this damn episode and say Abigail was the best vampire movie I saw this year. Upon reflection, because I really dislike Abigail's third act. I think Abigail is fun for about 2/3, and then it just is what it is. Like, it's just okay. I like Abigail, but Nosferatu was originally below it. We Live in Time is a film, again, these are still 3s right now, that I just thought would be better based off the caliber of actors and actresses that were involved, and it wasn't. It just wasn't, specifically around the conflict that is created between the characters that doesn't feel resolved. I also feel like the chemistry was there, but it had to grow. And at that point, I didn't really feel it at its height until closer to the middle of the film. And then it started making choices I didn't agree with. We're going to come back to the substance, Philline, because I really need to have a conversation with you. Flow is an animated film that I enjoyed, 3 out of 5. But this particular film, and Phil, I'm curious because I believe you also finally saw it. It almost feels like just kind of Oscar bait a little bit, because there's no dialogue in the movie. You get from a point A to point B story. There's nothing I took away from this movie that like really made me want to watch more of it or to put it on again. I don't know if you walked away with any of those feelings, enjoyed it, but again, didn't love it. And then finally, before we get to our main talking point, Deadpool and Wolverine, 3 out of 5, I think painfully average. The longer away I am from it, it's funny, sure. Gory, I guess they did use that R rating, but I thought in kind of some cheesy ways. Some of the CGI is really spotty. And ultimately, this film is carried by a lot of cameo fests. I think my biggest problem is for Hugh Jackman still giving his all as Wolverine, they didn't really give this Wolverine a much interesting backstory to be this type of Wolverine, if that makes sense. If you've seen the film, I hope that clicks. That being said, The Substance. I watched this today. And I'm telling you, I was vibing with this movie. This is in a ton of top 10s lists, including one here today. This movie for the first hour, vibing. I was sure this was going to be a 4 out of 5. And then about 30 minutes later, I'm thinking like a 3.5. And then this fucking balls to the wall ending. 3. The first half of this movie, very interesting. I think this is a movie that gets lost in its messaging. An important message, a message that at points it executes really effectively. And I understand I'm not the target audience for that message. I could appreciate it though. But very curious, Philline, and I know you could talk more on the positive side when it gets to your list, because I'm in the minority. A lot of people love this film. Wild second half to this film, specifically what they do at the end here that I think almost ruins it for me. But this is also not my genre typically. So I feel like, again, just like I talked about with comedy, I'm a little more harsh on horror because I don't have comedy and horror films in like my top tiers of movies all time. You two, obviously, you for horror, Phil for comedy, do. So that's where I'll pause for dialogue. But Philline, I have to get your input on The Substance because I knew you'd get mad. Second time, The Fall Guy and The Substance, I was like, Philline's gonna say I hate all her movies. What are your thoughts? Walk me through the trauma shock that you're going through.
Well, I'm also not very surprised. When I did watch the film and I thought about the final act, when you asked me if I liked it, that was a thought in my mind that you would not like the final act. It is very campy. It is horror through and through. It is campy horror. And I don't think the messaging got lost at the final act. I actually think the messaging in the final act was actually very important, which is what I will discuss later. I do think it is very important. It is actually probably one of the most important parts that I saw directly through and through. But it's okay. That's fine. Again, I'm not surprised. I watched it again the other day, and I was like, fine. God. Which is fine.
For the record, since you guys have called me out on that, I watch you guys do it constantly and I stay quiet, but I am not the only person that does the if it's fine shit, and I'm tired of being alienated and isolated because you guys do it all the time, and there's video evidence. You guys do it all the time. But I will clarify, when I mean it loses itself in its messaging, it feels like it's focusing too much on that. Like, I don't think, and again, I'm not the type of person that can give you the most expertise opinion on it, but by the time we get to that, and you add the campiness, and you basically change what the movie is at that point. To that point, it's at least somewhat in the realm of realism. When you make that turn to enhance that message, I just don't think it was worth, like, I think it did a lot. And then I think we got from here to like a little bit further. And I think that little bit wasn't worth it for what they did. But again, also not my genre, so totally makes sense. Was there any other movies here that you had an opinion on? Or did you get to all of them?
Abigail, I have much higher on my list. I did really enjoy this film. Same thing, wow. The final act for this film. Loved it. I actually really enjoyed the final act of this film. Yeah. Also very campy. Was thoroughly surprised. I think I benefited from this film because I actually did not see the trailer. So I did not know what the twist was. So I was thoroughly surprised. Another reason why I am pushing 2025. Do not watch trailers, guys. This is how this affects films. Yeah. And but Flo, I'm disappointed that was just what you say is Oscar bait. It seems really cute, but I could see it. And again, we live in time. I do want to touch on that film, but I'm not jumping at the thought of it.
Yeah. And Phil, Breyer says he's apparently loves bad movies. He's sorry. So after Porco Rosso and now this, I don't believe he will be returning to the show. And maybe start with Deadpool and Wolverine again. Maybe lighten it up.
Yeah.
I don't know, because I don't think you're going to say much different than we did here.
No. No. It'll come up here again very shortly when I go. And it was just the ultimate fan service film, which is a good thing. Like, for people had a really great time in this movie. Again, it is funny, and the cameos were, for the most part, pretty solid. And it is basically given Channing Tatum, who I think is a good person and a good actor, kind of a second shot at this character that he really, really loves. And I think that is great, and I'm excited to see him return. But other than that, like, we are past the point. And listen, I am a person. I get it. I have Godzilla x Kong really high on my list. I understand that. But I also expect more out of my superhero films now, because some of the best stories that I've ever seen in cinema are from the MCU. So I think it's okay for us to expect, as big fans of Logan, as much as we were like, that's the perfect ending. I think it's okay for us to expect to bring this character back, for us to want more. So I understand people are pissed off that we thought it was okay, but we just expect more out of these, and that's how we feel. So.
And the one thing I'll say, as you go through any other films here, these are, I believe, we're all in 3 territories now.
Mm-hmm. I think I gave that 3. Yeah.
Yeah, so I believe comfortably we're in 3 territories. 3 out of 5, just speaking for me, again, positive. Yeah. I believe it's over a half, so yeah, it's a positive, but it is in the bottom half of our films for this year. So we feel like there's 25 more films that we enjoyed much more, and curious if we feel the same way once we get to 1, if you've seen those films, if you agree with its placement. But Phil, what about Flow? Any thoughts about that? Again, it was good. I enjoyed it. Yeah. I would recommend people watch it. I just do think there's not much to revisit.
No, I'll say this. If Flow wins Best Animated over what I know all 3 of us have very high, it's absurd. There's absolutely no way, no place, no world in which Flow is better than the Best Animated film that came out in 2024. So it does very much feel like that. Philline, it is very cute. It is a very cute movie. You'll love the other animals that are in it, but with no dialogue, it's just a hard sell to casual audiences. But in terms of what people are looking for really beautiful animation and so along those lines, I think it was a fine movie. And honestly, even a really good one, as you'll see here in a moment on my list when we get to mine. But yeah, there is no way that this is the best animated film of 2024. So if that happens, yeah. Hello, we also got a new follower. Let's see, Hobo Poppy Pancello. Thanks so much for following. I also do want to, I don't know if she's in here still. I do want to shout out Jordan, because we missed her message earlier. She talked about how bad the Trap soundtrack is. That I will agree with from beginning to end. So with M. Night Shyamalan's making her daughter, his daughter.
I will painfully say one of those songs is on my liked playlist. I don't remember which one, but I do have one.
That's upsetting. So yeah, but Eric, we have some repeats here if we want to get to my next 5.
Yeah, and I think that's a good thing, because like we're about to hit about an hour and a half. Thanks for sticking around with us.
Yeah.
The top 25 here, we're gonna start seeing some overlaps. This is where I think again we've seen a lot of the same films, which should tell you something. I mean, there's at least 3 similar opinions from this point on, other than Phil's take with Wicked. So let's go ahead and jump into your next 5 films. 4 of which we've talked about.
You okay?
I think I just had a light seizure.
I think so. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, You're doing a great job. Claps in the chat. Give Eric a pop Nemo for Eric for doing a great job with the,
Thank you.
with the screen share. This is where Challengers shows up on my list. I know Challengers is very high on a lot of people's list for 2024, and it was a movie that I definitely circled in terms of being like, okay, this definitely looks like a winner. Zendaya, she's Zendaya. But it was just like, it was okay. This is where I think right at Deadpool and Wolverine is where my 3s stop, and then up the next movies from 28 and above are 3.5 or more. So Challengers is something that like I don't really ever want to revisit, but I'm glad that I watched it. I think it's her as a character. I can't remember that character's name off the top of my head now, Eric. But like I think for a lot of people, they'll remember, Tashi. I think a lot of people will remember Tashi as like a pretty iconic, powerful character. In terms of a movie and its plot and the story and the other characters outside of her, I thought it was fine. I thought it was fine, but I know people have that a lot higher than I do. Deadpool and Wolverine, we already spoke our piece on that. The only other thing I'll add on about that is, like I said, I expect more out of my Marvel movies, my superhero movies. I routinely go back and watch Black Panther, Shang-Chi, the Infinity War and Endgame, Captain America, Winter Soldier. I go back and watch those movies routinely as like background noise. I have never once thought about watching Deadpool and Wolverine again, and that's where that stands. Philo and Transformers 1, I did update a little bit earlier in the day, Eric, but they're kind of like interchangeable. Like you said, Transformers 1 is fine. Brian Tyree Henry, outstanding. This is probably the only one in terms of like Sonic, what was the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles that we saw last year that we didn't enjoy. Transformers is the one, no pun intended, that I might go back and watch when there's like a sequel. Like I might keep up with that franchise because Brian Tyree Henry was so good. But Scarlett Johansson, really, if for a voice acting, and then Chris Hemsworth was okay, I guess. And this is where Book of Clarence lands for me, right outside of my top 25. So we've already spoken a lot about all of these except for Challengers. So Philline, did you see Challengers? You did, yeah. You saw Challengers in 2024, right?
I did.
Yeah. So are you surprised it's like right outside of the top 25 for me, or what do you have?
No, not at all. I actually did update my list right before this with the Challengers on it, so I don't know if that reflects on.
I'm about to refresh these tabs.
Okay.
Phil updated it like 30 minutes ago. I'm not gonna stand for this. It's fine. I'll update in a minute.
So it actually did fall a little bit differently because of just reevaluating my films this year. So it's interesting seeing where it shifted, in my opinion.
Yeah, Eric, you saw Challengers way before I did as well. I think you saw it in theaters, right?
I did. Mm-hmm. I did. Movie I saw by myself. A couple of movies I went out of my way. I'm doing more things by myself now. Okay, you guys tell me to go out and do stuff. I go out and do stuff, and then you laugh at me.
No, it's not the fact that you go to movies by yourself. It is the choice of movie that you go to see by yourself. That is, I go to the movies by yourself, but do not watch Long Legs in the front row at 10 a.m. in the morning.
At 10 a.m.
Okay. Well, let's just say.
I wish it was like a Sunday.
Go get yourself
God's day.
Get yourself a nice dinner. Go to Sushi X. Have yourself a nice meal, and then go to Tinseltown at like 6:30. Don't go see Long Legs at 10 a.m. in 2025, please.
Well, listen, I'll tell you the type of decisions that I make. I had a hot pot right before this, so hot pot and barbecue, stirring right now. I am in. This is a long recording,
and we don't have the Be Right Back here in Riverside.
No, probably should not have done that as my meal choice prior to recording. I will talk about Challengers again, a little bit higher. Did enjoy it. Zendaya, powerhouse. She's on my list twice. We talked about Deadpool and Wolverine at length. Flow, Transformers 1, and Book of Clarence. Again, a movie that I thought I definitely wanted to try to check out for sure.
Yeah, but other than that, like I said, we covered all these. Flynn, you want to get to your 30 to 26 before we get to the top 25 meat and potatoes of our lists this year.
Yeah, it does feel like she's doing this to hurt us, but it's okay with one of these choices. Multiple choices on her on her list. So let's go ahead and get to your list. And if you want to walk us through these 5 films, 2 of these have already come up.
What?
Oh, that's not all. we're gonna get there.
Okay, Carry On, we've already talked about. I enjoyed this film. It was a good Netflix Christmas movie. I enjoyed it. Taron Egerton, I've always loved him. So it was nice to see him back again. Quiet Place, day one. Same thing. I rated this pretty high when I first came out of the movie, but then looking back at all of the horror that I've seen this year, which is a lot, it did fall short of the other two films, but it was okay. Lupita was a good ad. The cat, 5 stars. 10 stars. Loved it.
10
Civil-
toe beans.
Civil War, enjoyed this movie. It was good. This is when I reached the 3.5 sign for me. So Civil War was good. I rewatched it, and it's just very slow pacing for me. So that's why I put it here. Juror number 2, good last minute movie for me. I love the ending, flat, but other than that, it was pretty good. I love true crime movies. I'm so sorry. Hitman was good. I didn't hate it. It was good. 3.5 is not bad. Why are you booing me? It was cute. I don't get Glenn Powell's. I don't know. He's a guy.
He's the guy.
You didn't write up a defense for Glenn Powell, huh?
No, I didn't.
The
We
guy.
got you. You should have known
just-
better.
Renaissance.
He's just a guy. I don't get it.
He's
I'm
not.
sorry.
Glenn,
He's
Yes.
not.
if you're watching, you're the guy, buddy.
You're the
He's-
We
opposite.
love you, man.
Glenn Powell, you're the opposite of Justice Smith. The complete opposite of a human being.
I never
Okay.
saw those two. I
Don't.
never thought those two would be compared, but okay.
That's
Yeah,
gonna be
let's
our. That's
not-
gonna be our
that's-
new like Shining and RR.
That is a crazy.
We're gonna do it for people.
Yeah. See, thank you, Joyanne. She doesn't get it either.
Well, Joanne has a specific type.
No, that's true. It's more Justice Smith, actually, than it is Glenn Powell.
It might be. You might like challengers.
Like, really like
Stop it. I'm gonna pass out. Anyways, but it was okay. It was a good movie. I thought it was funny. I'm kind of just. Never mind. I was gonna say inside thought, outside. So never mind. It was just okay.
Yeah, Phil. Any thoughts here? Again, we're going to be pretty upset. Hitman's, I think, a lot higher on both of our lists. It's definitely a lot higher on mine. Same with Civil War. Although I can understand this placement. The longer I've been, Civil War has dropped on my list since watching it, and we'll talk as to why. But I know you saw Juror number 2 too, Phil, which was surprising because I heard good things. Nicholas Hoult having a great year, but it's a Clint Eastwood film, so it just wasn't a film I was probably going to ever check out. Also, it seemed like the advertising for this movie went in the toilet. So, yeah, what are your thoughts? I think there's a couple of movies that you probably resonate with here.
Yeah, Juror number 2, I'm a little surprised to see right outside of the top 25. Again, 3.5 out of 5 is also what I gave it. I just have it higher on my list. And I enjoyed it. I'm also like with you, Eric, as far as Clint Eastwood movies. Like I'm like give or take on them. This is, I believe, his last film as well. And I think I saw like Cinema Joe rate it pretty high. So I was going to check it out. I'm pretty sure he actually also gave it a 3.5. But I wanted to check it out. I like Nicholas Hoult. It was a really interesting premise. J.K. Simmons is also very good in this as well. And I liked it a lot. It was, Philline is right. The ending very much falls flat. And the character makes a lot of really stupid decisions that would very much piss Eric off. But I enjoyed it. So it's not like a lot higher than where Philline has it. But it is in my top 25, obviously, since we have not talked about it yet. So, yeah. Hitman and Glenn Powell is fantastic. Breyer says you mentioned advertising. I don't think I've heard of 50% of these films outside of you guys, which is fair. We're very much on Film Talk, and my IG algorithm is a lot of looking for a lot of movies that to kind of find that are not within like the general zeitgeist. But yeah. Civil War, I also have a little bit higher, and but I believe the same grade. So like we're getting to the point now where we have a lot of movies that are the same. We just like felt differently in terms of ranking. So it's I'm excited for this top 25.
Yeah, so for that reason, I think I'm going to ask how you guys feel. I feel like we've been moving pretty nicely on the Letterboxd list by either 10s or 5s.
You want to keep doing that?
Let's go by 5s from here on out.
That's fine.
Because we're already at an hour and a half, and if we go individually, although we will have some overlap,
is going to take forever.
This is going to be 3 hours.
Yeah, I think 5 is fine.
Yeah. So that's good because again, there are 2 films on here. Going back to my list, it is my turn. Yep. That are gonna come up again. One of those is Challengers at the 25th spot. 3 out of 5. I really enjoyed Challengers. As much as Zendaya is a powerhouse, the real chemistry in this movie are between the 2 male leads. There is a scene with a churro, stiff, just absolutely stiff. So listen, maybe the gayest film I saw this year. I'll take more of that.
No, that's not true. We saw Top Gun in 2024.
Oh, we did. Yeah, I guess released this year for me. Next on the list is Smile 2. Talk about banger soundtracks. That's absolutely helping here. It is a 3 out of 5. I think it is better than the first Smile by a smidge. It's definitely a little bit more stylistic, but there are so many different elements of horror happening here where the first one was kind of straightforward. This one does like a lot of different things, from trying to jump scare you to grotesque imagery, some body horror. It was a little much for me. And I also think this ending isn't, the actual ending itself leaves the franchise in an interesting place. That third act, you're going to hear me bring up third acts in horror, I guess, a lot. Again, not really the strongest part of the movie. So still enjoyed it. Happy I saw it. Naomi Scott, absolute powerhouse, talking about female leads this year and performances. You may be surprised to see this movie. That Christmas is a film on Netflix. I put it on for my son like the day after Christmas, and I didn't think I was going to watch it. This is my first 3.5 of the year. It's an unforgettable Christmas for the townsfolk of Wellington-on-Sea when the worst snowstorm in history alters everyone's plans, including Santa. This is not a movie that I thought I was going to watch. Brian Cox is Santa in here. It's also got several other cast members that you may know of. I just enjoyed this. This was like a little bit of a different take on a Christmas film. And honestly, it's going to be one we probably put in rotation. The animation also pretty decent, pretty good, I would say. Not top tier, which is why it isn't higher. But yeah, such a random movie on my list. I understand, but I enjoyed it a lot. Perfect Days is going to be a episode that we discuss on the podcast. So at the risk of not saying too much, I will tell you this is also a 3.5. This came out in festivals in 2023, but released in the US in 2024, which is why it's on this list for me and Phil. We're excited to talk about this movie. This is very much a day in the life of somebody. If that's your thing and you want to kind of put it on and turn your brain off and just kind of like soak in what it's like to be someone else, this is the movie for you. And honestly, there was some type of joy in seeing this guy clean toilets. There just was, in seeing that life being lived. Civil War is where 21 is where it's going to be. This was in my top 15 at one point. 2 things have happened. I've seen a lot more stronger movies that are going into the 4 territories. This is a 3.5 still. And then 2, the further away I've gotten from this movie, I haven't really wanted to rewatch it, but if it was on, which is how a 3.5 works for me, if it's on, I'll totally check it out, and there's potential for a rewatch. But I just haven't wanted to revisit it, and honestly, although it's a very important movie, I think a lot of people are trying to spin this into one side or the other. At its core, this movie is about journalism in war, and I think that was a story worth telling, and for the most part, well executed, though there were some fumbles here and there that held the film back. So those are my next 5 movies. Phil, any thoughts on that? Picking up from Challengers where you left on and forward.
Yeah. Again, enjoyed Challengers and for a few of the performances, but it's not that far out of my top 25. Just I saw definitely a lot more movies that I enjoyed then that one, Smile 2, is obviously something I will never watch. I do know that what you guys have told me about it, and from some spoilers, I know there is stuff in there I cannot handle. Perfect Days, like you said, Eric, is a film we're not going to go too far into because we will be speaking about it here very soon. Here's what I will say about Perfect Days, and I'm going to echo this again for the podcast-only audience. It is not a film for everybody. This is very much a movie where you just need to sit and think about it for a while, and what the characters' emotions, decisions, and really kind of lack of dialogue mean to you. And I think that's where I found a lot of beauty in it. So don't want to talk about it too much, as it'll pop up here very shortly. And yeah, Civil War. I have it pretty similarly ranked as you. There is a lot of really good performances in that, a lot of really good cinematography, and I enjoyed it. Oh yeah. Also, I'm glad Jay is still here because I pulled this up on Letterboxd, and I saw that I saw your ranking, and then I saw that Jay has given this a 2 on on Letterboxd.
Civil War?
No. That Christmas. He gave That Christmas a 2, and he also left a review. It says That Christmas, more like that Christmas movie needed more than 2 likable characters. But so Jay, if you're still in here,
crazy.
He did not enjoy it.
What I will say, and again, this is I always think that a movie has about a half-star rating to give, up or down. Could this have probably been a 3? Maybe. I was shocked that I was interested at all. I sat down on the couch to watch like the first 15 minutes, and I was like, there's an interesting story here. Likable characters, there's definitely a discussion about that. I would disagree. I think there's a lot of likable characters in here, but yeah, I could also see if somebody like this isn't your jam. So this is like the oddest movie on my list. Did not expect it to be here. This is around the time where I saw 50 was attainable because I started watching some movies like this. Philline, what were your thoughts?
I got you, friend. I also gave you a like on Letterboxd. I got you, buddy.
God.
Challengers, I actually pretty good because that's we're about the same there, me and you, Eric. And Smile 2, I have thoughts on that, but same thing. It's not too far between me and you on our list. That Christmas, never heard of that movie. I will say I watched Klaus for the first time this year, and no animated Christmas movie will ever.
Yeah, I hope I didn't give off the impression that Christmas is like a top tier movie, 2 better than Klaus, because I don't want that getting out there.
But I don't ever. Oh, so that.
Go watch Klaus instead. Don't watch That Christmas. Watch If you have the option of the 2, watch Klaus 5 times, and then maybe think about That Christmas, and then watch Klaus 5 more times.
Yeah, I don't want to watch another animated Christmas movie other than that one. Well, I do love Polar Express. I know that's a hot take in this trio.
No, just that guy. I have to watch it every year with my family.
Okay, good.
Yeah, hot chocolate.
Sorry.
You pick the most random parts of films.
No, we have to make hot chocolate. No, we actually have to make hot chocolate in this household and drink hot chocolate when he's singing hot chocolate. You don't understand. He doesn't get it. It's fine.
Oh, God.
Take back control.
No, it could be a Filipino hot chocolate.
Perfect Days. I did really want to see this film. I kept on seeing trailers for it, and I thought it looked so cute. I am really sad I missed it. I didn't get a chance to watch it before we did this, but that is something that I was definitely very interested in watching.
All right. So, Phil, I believe that brings us now to you.
Briar says he thinks about the Polar Express every time he picks up a hole punch.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I mean, it is hole punch art.
Okay.
So.
All right. Phil, take it away. We got some new films here.
Yeah.
But yes, kicking back off with Perfect Days for you.
Yeah, 25 perfect days. Like I said, I don't want to waste, or I don't want to spoil too much in terms of this, because we are going to talk about it in depth here very, very soon. Woman of the Hour. This is where this pops up. Anna Kendrick's directorial debut. We need to keep an eye on her in terms of what she can do in the future. This is a really, really good start. I think I like this more than a few other people in terms of at least the Letterboxd average, but I very much enjoyed this. It's a very haunting telling of this story. It is based on a true true events. And yeah, just really, really solid performances. It was interesting to watch this as well as The Man in the White Van in 2024, Eric, because I think there were some decisions that maybe could have been borrowed from Woman of the Hour to make the Man in the White Van higher than we even had it here this year. But yeah, Anna Kendrick, I think we might be onto something here as far as her being a director. My Old Ass is another movie. It's one of those Amazon films. Ari Plaza was the immediate draw-in for me. Obviously, she's had a hell of a year with also being in Agatha All Along. She's great in that too. This movie will really get to you, especially for like an older millennial audience. I don't want to spoil anything. I will say Ari Plaza is not in it enough. But the main character is played by Maisie Stella, very, very good, and I think it's certainly worth your time if you're looking for a good way to a good emotional film, another coming of age story to watch. This is where Look Back shows up for me. I watched this in the latter stages of 2024. It's about an hour long. It's from the creator of Chainsaw Man, and honestly, like probably going back and watching it again, because it's at a 3.5, but I could be convinced that this is a 4 bare minimum in terms of the storytelling and what happens here in this. It is, it's devastating. It is probably the saddest in a good way. One of the saddest films I saw in 2024. Next to a couple that we'll talk about in my top 10. It is very, very good. And another kind of like another one of these coming of age movies, I watched a lot of these in 2024, is Turtles All the Way Down. I talked about this a lot with you two in 2024, so I hope you do watch it. Find time to check it out in 2025. Isabella Merced, she was in what's it called, Madam Web earlier in the year, and then thankfully she was in a solid movie that came out in 2024, but very, very much like this one, as well as her co-star. Just really good story. I would like to go. I need to go back and watch it again to be for a little bit of a refresher to confirm how I feel, because the score might even go up a little bit. But yeah, this is one that I've been talking y'all's ear off about. But yeah, some fresh films here, Eric, in my 25 to 21 range.
Yeah, very good. We'll talk. I'll talk a little bit more about Look Back here shortly. Only an hour film, but it packs a punch.
I very much want to watch some of his other not one shots, but like the shorter stories.
Yeah, and if they can execute it like this, I would love to see more of those translated to film. We talked about Perfect Days. The other 3 here have not seen. These are also movies again. Mid-tier. I just couldn't make time for, again, watched 50 movies. You got to give me a pass somewhere. That's kind of where those movies fall. But I've heard good things about My Old Ass. I've heard it's funny. I've heard great things about Woman of the Hour from both of you. And Phil, you have nonstop talked about Turtles All the Way Down. I also hear there's some interesting stuff with the way they present, some of the things in that movie. And I think it's interesting. Will I go check these out and go out of my way to? Difficult to tell, but definitely ones that I missed this year that I wish I would have hit. Yeah. Philline, where are you at with these?
I really wanted to see My Old Ass. I know you texted me to watch that movie, but I just never got the chance to do it. I did really want to see that. I do still plan to. Woman of the Hour, you'll find, is pretty high on my list. I watched a lot of badass women in 2024, I will tell you. So I am excited to see where my 25 will fall, because there's like some stellar women in my top 25. So I am excited for you guys to see that.
Yeah, and shout out to Jay. Jay put a comment here. I got to go back to another one, though. I missed these earlier as we brought up his review. I didn't know he felt that badly about the Christmas movie. And I don't appreciate that this is going to be on the next Christmas special. But
oh, no.
Quick plug, if you missed that, the holiday special, an audio-only episode we do every year with the Super Bracket Bros Cinematic Universe. Check that out, where we discuss the best Santas.
If you're curious, if you haven't listened to that yet, Breyer, we talk about Klaus a lot.
Yep. So that Christmas, I did not watch it in time for that episode, but I guess apparently it will return. But yeah, so Philline, I believe we are now back up to you. Top
Yes.
25, exciting stuff. You are starting off as well with challengers, so
Yes.
take it away.
So I did have challengers below my top 25, but again, I just watched a lot of like really just like awesome women this year, so I put it a little bit higher just because Zendaya's performance was definitely a standout. If these reviews seem a little weird and not the way that I've been talking this whole night, it's because I typed out notes, so I'm going to be reading reading them. So just bear with me. So I wrote that Zendaya's performance is a standout, and this movie puts on a wild ride. It's sexy. It made me care somewhat about tennis. I wasn't sure where the story was going to lead me throughout, and the ending really actually left me speechless, and it was unforgettable in my opinion. I don't have it as high as everybody else, but I did really enjoy Zendaya and just how she just controlled every single scene regarding the two men. I loved it. The next movie I have is Maxine. This is probably my biggest letdown of 2024, guys. I cannot tell you how much I love X and Pearl. Mia Goth has been my number one final girl for the past like couple of years now. And this is the worst of the series. I was really hoping it would be amazing. The third act was rushed and the ending was completely obvious. The twist that they thought that they had, I saw it from a mile away. The only reason why I have it as so high is because I can't deny that Mia Goth just steals every single scene that she is in. I love her. I will continue to keep following her career. And the 80s feel was cool, and it was just a stunning movie, but I just been very upset. I thought that this was going to be in my top 5, and as you can see, it's 24. Yes, Mia. Number 23 is Speak No Evil. This remake is surprisingly good. It really, really makes me want to watch the original. James McAvoy is phenomenal. He's both terrifying and captivating to watch, and the story just takes a disturbing turn. The ending is dark and satisfying. Side note, here is another movie with an absolutely useless father and husband. So, 22 is Twisters. Sorry guys, just Glenn Powell, he's great. I love Glenn and Daisy together. They are cute. It was a wild ride. I like the special effects. I do think I did a disjustice by not watching this in the theater. I probably would have had it higher, but I watched it from my home, so I don't think I got the same effect as you guys did, but it was good. I liked it. And then 21, Crazy. I did not think I was going to enjoy this movie. This movie really shocked me. The first Omen, it was a prequel to The Omen. I did not think it was needed at all, but the jump scares were crazy. It was disturbing. It was thrilling. Great ending. I actually loved it. I did not watch Immaculate, which is kind of the same, but I think both ends for both movies, I think they were both well received, but I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. And that's it.
All right. So, Phil, what are your thoughts here about her attacks on Glenn Powell today?
Listen, at least one of the Glennaissance films of 2024 is in her top 20, top 25. Yeah, Twisters absolutely should have been seen on a big screen in terms of like special effects and just how loud that movie was. But yeah, I would just love to see Glenn Powell and Daisy Edgar Jones on another press tour. We can probably kick Anthony Ramos out, but those two were like really good in terms of a throuple. They were. I will give that to challengers. Wow. Okay, that's not going to be accepted here. Maxine, I guess I'm a little surprised to see it in your top 25 because you talked about how disappointed you were with the film in terms of like the all three of them. But I'm not. But I guess the fact that you still love that character so much was And that story makes sense as to why it's here. Speak No Evil is one that I definitely wanted to see and never got around to. The first Omen I definitely will never watch. So
yeah, there we go. I was like, Briar, Twitter was 7 out of 10. I was like, what an opinion. Twister, 7 out of 10.
I agree. Twitter is much lower than that. It's no longer a 7 out of 10.
We enjoyed Twisters probably more than we should have. I'll talk a little bit about what stops it from being a perfect film, but man, it was just such a fun time. It embraced what it is. Just remember, if you don't face your fears, you ride them. Okay, so keep that in mind.
Also, Eric, if you feel it.
It is now out of my 25. Just because you guys said that. It is
Jordan, Twitter is a solid 6. Yeah, no.
Well, she doesn't use Twitter.
Fair.
She logs into my Twitter and then steals my algorithm. So she doesn't even have a Twitter.
I will say the first Omen I heard a lot of good things about, actually. Again, not my genre, so not a movie I was going to go out of my way to see, but did I hear about the hype around it? Yeah. And apparently that was unexpected hype. Speak No Evil, I've heard good things, but I also hear people on the other side saying that the international film it's based off of was better. And that's, we talked about it briefly, Philline, about how I think I want to watch that first. So I didn't go out of my way to see this, although James McAvoy's, he's great. And then Maxine, I'm also surprised you had up here. Challengers makes sense, but Maxine, I think the census it's the weakest of the 3, and it's much weaker than anything else before it. So
I will say there's one kill in this movie with a stiletto and a man's parts that do raise it up
Maxine,
a point.
Actually, I did see Maxine.
Stop.
I've seen Maxine.
Yeah. No, you haven't.
Yeah. Well, I know what you're talking
about. You did not.
That's all.
Oh my god! All right,
there is a kill count.
Consensus there. We hate men. Let's jump into our next 5. So this is where I think I'm going to surprise a little bit. I have walked away thinking about Nosferatu every single day since I've watched it on Christmas Day. For reference, Christmas Day, not very long ago. This movie was around the low 20s and is at 20 at the moment. I do think I had the most fun with this particular film. I really, really enjoyed it, and I not really, really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it for what it was, not being a fan of that genre, and it not really being my vibe. I enjoyed it enough that I want to see it again, which is like really weird. And again, a 3.5 for me, if it's a movie that is on and I would like sit down and it would catch my eye and I would watch it. I put it at a 3.5. This movie originally was a 3. So I bumped it up in rating. And then as I compared it to other movies, like if we look at the list below it, I'm not going to watch Challengers again, though I enjoyed it. Same thing with Smile 2. That Christmas, total anomaly here. We're not going to talk anymore about That Christmas. Perfect Days, really enjoyed it. 3.5. Civil War, enjoyed it. But I'm not going to really revisit those movies. If they're on, it catches my attention. I'd highly recommend them. Nosferatu is the start of movies where, like, I think I want to see that again. I think I want to form more of an opinion there. It's a beautifully shot movie. That was never in question. It's not everybody's cup of tea. This is a weird movie. It goes places. We'll talk more about that, I think, when Philline gets to it. Heretic, a film that I really enjoyed most of. Heretic, Hugh Grant, fantastic. We talk about Naomi Scott with a strong female horror performance. I think Hugh Grant might have had the strongest male horror performance here. At least there's an argument for that on my side with the films that I have seen. He was really, really good. He drops a Jar Jar Binks line in here so casually, and it works. That's the type of performance we're talking about. And I really like the themes on religion that this movie tackles. If you guys know me, I'm not very religious, but the whole conversation around it, which is crazy for one of my top movies being in here, but it's a crazy conversation that I think can make people uncomfortable, and they use that uncomfortableness to make this more of a thriller. I think the problem is it's advertised as like a horror thriller, but it's really also a mystery film, and they throw that in as the film progresses, and I don't think that's natural. So this movie's held back a lot, again, by its third act, but it is still a movie that I recommend and I enjoyed. Look Back was a great time. I really enjoyed this. It's only an hour commitment. It was on Amazon Prime. Had to check it out, and I think I echo what Phil said here. It just is something that makes me want to see more work like this from the creator of this, Chainsaw Man, and a lot of other short stories that I've gotten to enjoy on Shonen Jump and manga in general. Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, is next on my list. I did enjoy this film. I do think it has some wonky CGI that I mentioned earlier. I think it's not the most original story. There's nothing like excellent happening here, but it is still a journey of a character in this world. And I think that has a lot of gravitas behind it to keep this movie fresh in people's mind. And over time, people liking it more. I know it didn't do very well at the box office, but for whatever you want to say about Anya Taylor-Joy, is that right? Did I say that right? Anya Taylor-Joy and Chris Hemsworth. Both of them I thought were really good in this film. Inside Out 2 wraps up this 5. I think it was a worthy sequel. Also a 3.5 here. I think it was worthy. I think it was good. The character of anxiety, very relatable to what a lot of us are dealing with on a daily basis. More now in this era than any other. And I think there are some interesting story elements. Not as good as the first one, though. And I don't think that's an argument that anyone is making, but I want to make it clear. It does fall short of the first one. Surprised it made $1 billion, but also not surprised after I walked out of the film. So those are my movies. Philline, I'll throw it to you first because I know there's a couple of films on the back end here, especially you have your eye on. So what are your thoughts?
Yes, Nosferatu was amazing. I thoroughly enjoyed this film. It's funny that you did adjust it because it was about like 10 minutes in the movie. I said, now I understand why this movie was not for Eric. So I am thoroughly pleased that you did move it up. But about 10 minutes in, I was like, ooh, I get it.
It was tough. Listen, it was tough. This movie does get some semblance of like a plot like later on, and like we do get to a point. But yeah, no, that first bit I think shocked me a little bit. I was like, oh, what the fuck am I watching?
I literally
at 9:30 a.m.
exactly
probably
what you're talking
in a
about.
theater by himself.
It was later on Christmas Day, and I will tell you, people walked out in segments. Like a quarter in, couple walked out. Halfway in, another person walked out. 3/4 in, 2 couples walked out. Like I was thinking about joining them. I'm glad I didn't, but it's crazy for me to feel like that about this movie. And just to add to what you're about to say, I think that speaks to the type of movie it is, even though it might not be everyone's cup of tea. A pretty great film. I
really am glad that you turned around on it, and I'm happy to see it high on your list now. Heretic, I am really sad that I missed this movie. I am really wanting to watch it. I just wasn't willing to pay the $19.99 to rent it. So I'll be waiting a little bit longer on that film, but I am excited to see it. And after you guys are talking about Look Back, I definitely want to see that film, seeing it on y'all's list. So that's all I have to say.
Yeah, Phil, what about you?
Yeah, Heretic, another one I wish I had gotten to before the end of the year. I don't think I'll be seeing Nosferatu. The funniest thing that's come out of that is the director acknowledging that a lot of millennials know who Nosferatu is because of SpongeBob, because of that episode with the slinging slasher. I think that's really funny. Yeah, Philin, you definitely have to watch Look Back. I didn't even think about that, just wanting to go back and go in and also read more of those stories for sure. I have Inside Out 2 actually a little bit higher than you do, and it is something that as I've gone back and thought about it has gotten higher on my list throughout the year, because I think it is a really good story that I'm glad it was told, but also, like you said, if we never got another Inside Out, I'd be perfectly fine with that. So, I talked about Furiosa a little bit earlier. So, but it's kind of a bummer that we just won't be getting any more stories in that universe, because it is very interesting.
Yeah, and we have now your next 5, Phil. So if you want to take it away, a couple of films that we've talked about so far, and a couple of new ones as well that I'm sure you're dying to throw in here.
Yeah, so this is where Civil War, Juror Number 2, and Hitman pop up. So we've talked about those a little bit already. Let's go with Bad Boys Ride or Die. Let's start there because this movie is a blast. These movies, once again, this is a turn your brain off and just watch Will Smith and Martin Lawrence be really ridiculous and have a lot of fun together. They still got the chemistry in 2024. I saw this with my brother-in-law, and we had a great time. I am, after seeing this, and this is not an original thought, it has been all over social media, there is no possible way that Batgirl could have been that bad. Because these are the directors that directed Batgirl, and WB decided to sunset that film in favor of a tax write-off. So just based on cinematography alone, I cannot be convinced that that could have been that bad. But this was a whole lot of fun. It's got some really, really cool drone shots, and it's still funny humor in 2024, and worth your time for sure. Get some friends together, put it on a big screen and with a soundboard, and I think you'll enjoy it. Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare was also just a whole lot of fun. I am such a big fan of Henry Cavill, and even though it's not going to happen, I think the ship has sailed. I want Alan Ritchson as my Batman. I think he could be a great Bruce Wayne and Batman, and he is just really great in this. Henry Golding is also in this, very, very good. And it was just a really fun time in the theater. A movie that also came out earlier in the year I haven't seen in quite a while, but I all this time later, all these months later, I still remember enjoying myself and laughing quite a bit. But yeah, also coming out of that, wanting to watch that Preacher show because of Alan Rickman. So Bad Boys over Deadpool, yeah. Yeah. I don't have an affinity for the Bad Boys characters like I do Wolverine or Logan. So Logan deserved a better story than the characters in Bad Boys. So and yeah, we talked about Hitman. We touched on that here a little bit. I thought it was a lot of fun. It also kind of convinced me that Glenn Powell could play Patrick Bateman in in an American Psycho film. That's already been cast now because of Austin Butler, but it just looked like he was having a lot of fun, as well as Adria Jonah. And the ending is kind of like, it's all right, but in terms of how much fun like Glenn Powell was having acting within acting within a movie, like it was just a really great time. And yeah, banner year for our guy Glenn.
That's right, despite what someone here may think. We talked a lot about Civil War. Juror Number 2, again, I kind of said everything I needed to say. Bad Boys Ride or Die is a movie that I wanted to see because I've heard they really do some cool camera stuff. And again, the directors, which is just crazy to think about what's happened to that other film. The directors specifically, I wanted to see their work here, but I didn't watch the last Bad Boys. I'm not gonna make a 2-film commitment. This is something that, like, again, I would put on the TV. It would probably catch my interest. So I was thinking, like, at most, this is probably going to be a 3.5 movie anyway. And again, that's where that decision comes in. We're still in your 3.5 field here for context, Phil, I believe. It's a little bit longer for the two of us before we get to 4s. That's why I'm surprised to see the Ministry of I don't even want to talk about this movie. I just, no, it's just not a movie I'm ever going to devote time to. And Hitman, I have a little bit higher than both of you. I thought it was really, really funny. Had a lot of charm. Talk about chemistry. Unlike Emily Blunt and Ryan Gosling in The Fall Guy, there. So yeah, I'll talk more about Hitman in just a little bit. Philline, any thoughts about any of these films before we jump to your list?
I already really talked about 3 of those on this list. Bad Boys, I'm really glad that they enjoyed that movie. I heard really good things after they left the theater, so I'm glad it was good. I've just never seen any of the original ones, so that's just unfortunate for me. I do want to see them at some point. And I don't even know what the other one is, so.
Yeah, no, we don't have to talk about it. It's okay.
It's a fun movie. You say it like it was one of the worst movies of the year. It's good.
No, I mean, yeah, okay. So we're gonna talk about a few other movies, and I think, Philline, towards the tail end here of your list going up, we're gonna start hitting 4s for you.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you want to jump into movies, Phil is very excited.
Let's go.
Take it away.
Three movies I love in here.
So I have number 20. I have Godzilla X Kong. Just a fun movie. Godzilla is the epitome of fuck around and find out. He told Kong to get the fuck away, and he gives Kong a suplex, and I will watch that over and over again. So, action, again, I realize in 2024 action is not my thing, but this was fun, and I like seeing them come together as friends. It's cute. Smile 2. I did really enjoy this film. Naomi Scott, like Eric said, was wonderful. The first film was just very like super jump scares, so it wasn't one of my favorite films, but this one had a genuine story to it. It really questioned my reality at the end. I thought I questioned my whole entire experience after seeing the twist. So I cannot stress enough how much I love this movie compared to the first one. This is where Fall Guys falls for me. It's crazy. I had this movie way close to top 10, but I moved it down so after reevaluating. It's fun. I actually like Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt. I've seen this movie several times. I just think it's fun. I do think they have great chemistry and banter. It had silly parts, and there's a lot of things that don't make sense, but it's a good time. And next is Abigail. What a good surprise. It was really fun. It was a perfect mix of horror and humor. Again, like I said, I think not seeing the trailer really benefited me. Melissa Barrera, just, it really, really breaks my heart because she deserves a leading role, and just not having her in the Scream franchise anymore is a big disservice. And I'm just really happy to see her, because just knowing that she didn't have a lot of opportunities after Scream really hurt me. So seeing her in this was amazing. Catherine Newton, amazing. Seeing Angus Cloud's last film was great. And just and crazy. I love Saw, and Abigail to me is just a 12-year-old John Kramer as a vampire, in my opinion. So I love this film. This is a hot take. Dune is where my fours, no, Abigail is where my fours start. So I don't think Dune is a bad movie. I don't think these movies are for me. I am not an action person. It's visually stunning. The actors are fantastic. Action and sci-fi isn't me. The main character's name is Paul. Not exciting. Sorry. But it's definitely well made. That's all I gotta say. I know I'll get hate for that, but I don't know.
Yeah. It doesn't feel like you want to have it at a 4 or even this high on the list. So I'm going to question the legitimacy of your spotting. Giving it a 4, you're not going to get any shit from me. This is definitely a movie I think any lower than a 4 is Criminal Activity. Outside the top 15, also possibly Criminal Activity, but I'll let it go.
Okay.
And we'll talk about that. I definitely get if it's not for you, though.
Yeah.
But Abigail, again, not surprised you enjoyed it a little more. The Fall Guy, it had everything set up to just entertain me. It just did not. I cannot explain it. Smile 2, not surprised. And Godzilla X Kong, a movie that's going to be talked about a lot here as we continue on the episode. So Phil, I'm guessing you're excited about that placement.
Yeah, I watched it again the other day with Peter. He had never seen it. Still fucking rules, man. I'll talk about it more in a little bit. Smile 2, not surprised to see that up here. And as the year went on, I stopped apologizing for how much I enjoyed Abigail. So we'll talk about it here. And Dune 2 a little bit later.
All right, so let's go ahead and jump back into my list here. Yeah, my list. And let's go ahead here and talk about getting into the top 15. Think there'll be some excitement here. I rounded up to 50 movies, and some of these movies I saw earlier in the year. 2 of these I saw in the last 2 days. Alien Romulus was a movie I saw in theaters. Did not think this was my jam. I did not think I would like this, but I got caught in the hype. I watched it, and while I can admit this is clearly a ripoff of just the first Alien, and there's a lot of cheesy callbacks that don't really work. Also, the bringing back of a dead character that, one, is unnecessary, two, cheesy. It's really just not necessary at all. I don't like what studios are doing with that whole deep fake thing that they're trying to do with these people that have passed away. I enjoyed this. This was a vibe. The third act, nuts. A little overhyped, but I appreciate they didn't make a whole nother movie to get us there. It just felt a little out of place, kind of brought the points down. It's still at a 3.5, and again, I really like the vibe. It made me interested in Alien content. It made me interested in Alien content more than I ever have been. So that's a win in itself. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is at 14, still a 3.5. We're about to get into my 4s. I enjoyed this movie. Again, I personally liked not only Noah as the lead character, I like Proximus as the antagonist. I like the world building that's happening here. This is not a perfect movie. This movie drags at certain points. The orangutan, who I forgot the name of, same thing. I would have loved to see more of that character or more interesting characters from the ape side, I think. Then again, having a focus on uninteresting humans. But that is the nature of this franchise. So I enjoyed it. I'm excited to see what comes next. The two of you are probably shocked to see Didi up here at all, let alone in the top 13. This is a movie that speaks to both a young Asian demographic and the people that grew up in like the MySpace era. I can relate to one of those things, and that thing, in addition to appreciating the other demographic side of it, which is very prevalent, and I know a little bit of that because of both of your experiences you guys have shared from time to time, led into my first 4 of the year in DD. I watched this today at the time of recording. It was the last movie I had watched, and it made it all the way up to 13, so I know we're going to talk about DD a little more on your list. A Real Pain was a real pleasure to watch. Kieran Culkin, Jesse Eisenberg. I watched this a day or two ago, and this is my type of comedy. This really is. But it also has a lot of deeper messaging and a lot of deeper themes that it's tackling. It's not a very long runtime, and for that reason, I really felt like it was just a quick road trip I took in the shoes of these two characters, and I really got a lot of value out of some of the conversations that they had. One of the lines in this movie that really resonated with me was that you bright up a room, but then you shit in everything in it. And I don't know why I felt like that described me a little bit. It kind of like was some self-reflection. Don't know what that says about me as a person, but there were lines like that where I really kind of resonated with either people I know or myself. And I thought this movie was just, again, a real joy to watch, although there's definitely some deeper topics at hand. Enough about that. Twisters was a blast. Oh my God, Glenn Powell. You saw it in theaters. The only thing holding back this movie, it's a 4 out of 5, just because it's purely invested in, it's a Glenn Powell-led movie. It's country. It's Twisters. It just embraced all of that. I just really wished we traded some of the special effects for more of that realistic prop work that the original had. I think this movie could have had more appeal, honestly, and could have really leaned into it. They chose not to. I think that's a detriment, which is why it's outside of my top 10. But a movie I enjoy, and I highly recommend. If you could have caught it in a theater, I would have recommended that you do so. So with that being said, Phil, I'll throw it to you first. What are your thoughts here on some of these movies on my list?
Yeah, I know you enjoy Kingdom much more than I did, so not surprised to see it here. Alien Romulus, also heard really great things from you throughout the year once you had seen it. Really happy that you enjoyed Dee Dee, and I agree with so much about what you said, and I think that's why it will resonate with, even if, you are not an Asian teenager, you will still very much resonate this because of the time frame. If you are around our age, so in your 30s, I think you'll very much enjoy that. A Real Pain, we'll talk about here momentarily with me for sure. And yeah, it is once again another type of film that I don't think is going to be for everybody, similar to in the vein of A Perfect Days. But I think it does have a lot of really important messaging in terms of, like you said, kind of like inner reflection. I think everybody probably has like a family member like this or a person in their life that will remind you of either character. So yeah. And Eric, not to spoil anything, but you and I both have Twisters at 11. So Twisters is fantastic. A hell of a ride. And that is a great point, though. If they had gotten more practical in this, I think it would have made it even better. But what we got is still good. So good, solid continuation of a franchise that I didn't really think needed to return. But I'm glad that I did.
Yeah, and Philline, I know you hated Twisters and Planet of the Apes. Don't know if you saw
I did
Alien
not
or
hate Twisters.
A Real Plane. So, Paige, so if you just want to talk about Dee Dee here, that's totally fine. I'm okay with that.
Yes, I love Dee Dee. I'm really glad that you watched it. I know we talked about it a little bit before start doing this stream, so I'm really glad you enjoyed it. I did not hate Twisters. Stop saying that. I enjoyed Twisters. I wish I saw it in the theaters. That's all I said.
I'm going to watch Twisters in my Deku PJs if you don't hate Twisters. Yeah, my ass.
And no Anthony Ramos. Cancel.
Oh, yeah,
Anthony
no,
Ramos.
Yes.
I did probably take off a quarter point, maybe a half point for that.
Yeah.
Creep.
The Challengers thruple was way better than the Twisters thruple.
I would agree with that.
Yes.
And then also I watched
100%.
Dee Dee specifically, I think, because of the Fall Guy. When I saw look how low it is. It's so low down
crazy.
here. I was
So
like,
far
I think,
down.
and then I watched Dee Dee after The Substance. I was already gonna watch it, but after those two movies, I was like, if I don't watch Dee Dee, they might not talk to me anymore. So, yeah, that's where I was at. But yeah.
And then Alien Romulus. That is one horror film that you watched that I didn't. So there you go. Look at
Okay,
that.
well, it's not just one. I watched Heretic too. Okay, give me some credit. Okay, I watched.
Okay, that's fair.
I watched
But
multiple.
Alien Romulus was like
Okay, none.
like a staple of this year.
Yeah, no, that's understandable.
Yeah.
All right, well, Phil, you already spoiled a little bit of it, and there's a couple returning movies, but one new film here. So if you want to jump into it, starting with that new film that we haven't discussed yet in Ultraman Rising at 15.
Yeah, Ultraman Rising was the perfect introduction to someone who knows nothing about Ultraman. And shout out to our buddy Corey. This was his animated film of the year. It's the only animated film he watched, I think, in 2024. But still, he is our go-to Ultraman guy. And yeah, this was a really, really fun watch. It's got really solid animation. It's on Netflix, so it's easy to look into and find. And I am excited to see more from this. It was a pretty straightforward story in terms of the main character, again, coming of age stuff, but really, really fun, and does make me want to look more into this character. I think the whole thing about Ultraman is, even though like I love the Power Rangers, with the Power Rangers it's always been like they jump into a Zord, they jump into some sort of machine, and with Ultraman, like, it just always seemed a little silly to me because he just gets big, and in this it works very, very well. So who knows if I'll react the same way to like a live action Ultraman, but for American audiences, I think that's what Corey said, like, this is perfect, and it was a whole lot of fun. And it's got a little cute kaiju. Look at that little guy on his back, and people like that. Kids will like it. This is where Fall Guy shows up for me. We've already talked about that and how wrong Eric is. Inside Out 2 is where 13 is where Inside Out 2 falls for me. Twisters, like I said, we both have at 11, and then this is where like I said, unapologetic about how much I loved Abigail. That movie was an absolute blast, and you can kind of tell like Melissa Barrera was very excited about it. We met her at Spookala earlier in the year, earlier in 2024, and she was just giddy about people getting to see this movie, and I see why. So really, really fun. Sammy, those are fucking onions. Like, what a great movie. So yep, this is my 15 through 11.
I was gonna say, if you don't quote Dan Stevens,
I got him.
Something's wrong.
Sammy, those are fucking onions.
Again,
I don't know how much.
I enjoyed it. Kevin Durand, Melissa Barrera, again, all great performances in this movie. I don't really disagree with anything here except for the Fall Guy, which again we're not going to continue to go back and forth on. I liked Ultraman Rising a lot more than you did. But again, this is where your fours are. No, we're not at your fours yet. Yeah, so these are your highest 3.5s as we get to your fours in the next stage. But yeah, again, high 3.5s. Maybe some of these you could argue 3.75s.
For sure.
Totally makes sense. Philline, anything you want to add commentary on for these films, except for Twisters? I know that you're again, seeing it again here,
Stop.
You're probably infuriated, but anything else?
I'm just really glad you loved Abigail as much as you did. That's just the movie that's really dear.
It is a fun time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I will say when Catherine Newton is in the pool, that scene just every single time I just want to.
Yeah, that's all.
Barf.
That's all practical too. So.
It's gross. But that's all I had to say.
All right. Well, Philline, you're coming back in here with several new films to the list, but starting off with one that was on Phil's in Woman of the Hour. So take it away.
Yes. So Woman of the Hour for me, I don't know if you guys have seen that trend on TikTok this year on whether or not you would pick a Man in the Woods or the bear. This movie perfectly depicts why I will always choose the bear 100% of the time. It was truly powerful. Anna Kendrick directed this movie with the utmost respect of the families and those who could be severely triggered by its content. Honestly, out of all the horror films this year, this has by far the scariest just because of the content of its film. I can relate as a woman as just certain things in it, and it's just really beautifully told, and I can't wait to see what else she has to offer moving forward. And then number 14, I have Blink Twice, which I know I don't think is on anybody's list. The reviews for this movie aren't the greatest, but along with Woman of the Hour, it was directed by Zoe Kravitz, which is also her directorial debut, and I didn't know what this movie was about, except for the fact that people were saying it was like very similar to what was going on in regards to like having islands and like the parties, if you know what I'm referring to. There is a trigger warning in this movie at the very beginning, and it was definitely needed. I wasn't prepared for all the terrifying things that was going to happen. Zoe Kravitz is a brilliant director. She has Channing Tatum in this movie, who is really, really terrifying. This movie is really dark. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I just was crazy. It was a crazy twist at the end, and again, it's a kind of like Get Out in my opinion, but it just has like a really badass woman in it. So I love it. And next is Terrifier 3. I love Art the Clown. He is a horror icon. I love him so much. This movie was a blast. I love the kills. The shower scene lives rent-free in my brain. It is the best out of the three, in my opinion. These movies keep adding on to the story, and I just can't wait to see what is coming with Art the Clown. Next is, I know it's a movie that is not on any of y'all's list. This is a French extremist horror movie. It is called Mads. I went into this film completely blind. I was just seeing a lot of reviews on it on TikTok. And this film was actually shot in 5 takes. It is a one-shot movie, so it is filmed in one shot the whole entire time. They did it in like I said, 5 takes. It was amazing. The cast was phenomenal, and this movie is scary, and it is like the best description I could have for it is it was like 28 Days Later, but just a smaller budget. I thought that they ran out of like ideas for zombie movies, and this movie just took it to a whole nother level. I thoroughly enjoyed this. I am so happy that I picked up Shudder just to watch this movie because it was absolutely phenomenal. Number 11 is where I put Inside Out 2. Again, Anxiety was just an amazing character. It was fun. It was funny, and I cried all throughout this movie, especially with just 2024 was a rough year, so it was just really cute just to really see a great adventure. Just wasn't as good as the first one, but I did still thoroughly enjoy it.
Yeah, definitely some interesting films that are here. We haven't made anybody mad in a minute, so that's good in the chat. Although Joanne is looking out in case anyone has any outbursts. Again, Woman of the Hour, not surprised. Also blinked twice to see that on your list. Movie that you definitely, I would expect to have checked out. One I heard mixed things about, but mostly positive. Terrifier 3 I'll talk about here shortly. Which is very interesting that I have it a little higher than you, as I've been introduced to Terrifier this year. When I saw Mads, and the poster is fucking creepy. So I did check out the description. Looked interesting. I didn't know it was kind of a one-shot film, and that it's got that new take on the zombie genre. So I might. Who knows? I don't want to watch another horror movie that you don't like, that I don't like, that you love. And then lastly, Inside Out 2. Again, I definitely not surprised to see you both have it higher. But again, definitely deserves to be in the top 2015 of this year. A good film overall. Phil, anything you want to add here?
Not too much. I've already talked about the two films that I saw. Blink Twice is one that I was like thinking about towards the end of the year, but then upon reading like some of the synopsis and parents guide stuff, I thought it best to maybe stay away from me. Terrifier is something I will never watch, so you guys can have that. Glad that Art the Clown lives somewhere within this friend group. Yeah, no, I don't want any part of that. And yeah, I do remember you talking about Mads. I don't think I'll ever see it, but it's good that again that there are some solid films out there in terms of Shudder. On Shudder, and not just like really really bad campy horror films over there.
All right, so as Phil dies, I will go ahead and transition into my top 10. And this is where we are still sitting at 4s for my list. And we are going to be starting off with a film that Philline just talked about in Terrifier 3. So I watched the Terrifier films. The first one, important to watch for the story, but probably the one that's most skippable outside of just the kill scenes. Terrifier 2, I think from start to finish, although the endings of these movies, there's a lot to digest, I think is the best story, and it doesn't really fully deliver on the kills. They're gruesome. There's one in particular that's really brutal, but doesn't really deliver on what the Terrifier like aura has been. Terrifier 3 said, all right, we heard you, and we're going to go fucking balls to the walls. Terrifier 3 is uncomfortable, absolutely uncomfortable to watch. I don't know why I like it, but it's so uncomfortably like gross and funny and horrific and hilarious that I just enjoy it. Spoiler, every time Art the Clown pulls out a gun, it's my favorite kill. It's my favorite kill. He doesn't even look like he's enjoying it. It's the first time I've ever seen a horror icon. And he is a horror icon, undoubtedly. Use a fucking pistol. So funny. So funny. Rebel Ridge. A movie I know I'm the only one that's seen here. The guy from Mufasa, as Philline would say, is the lead here. And he is fantastic. It's, again, very much a modern day Walking Tall, but the way I kind of put the spin on it was, like, there's, like, literal, like, legit military movement and thought process in when you say he's a military character or has that background. And those, like, elements really worked here for me. The performances worked here, the tone. There's obviously a lot of stuff with the police. Wink, wink, 2025. I think we get it. That's intertwined here into the story that work for the protagonist. I do think this movie does falter in regards to what it's trying to do, maybe leading up to the third act. But once we get to the third act, I think it does give you a good viewing experience and is a 4 for me. Hitman is a movie I have much higher than you guys. This is my favorite Glenn Powell movie of the year. And It's my type of comedy. The romance, yeah, it was good. The chemistry was good. It's not really a romance film as much as it is a comedy film for me. And that's why I think I really resonated, because the different characters that he plays, the premise itself, all of those things were really good. And I think the performances elevated it. The vibe was totally my vibe, and I just really enjoyed Hitman, and it's a good watch. Anora. This is a film just like Nosferatu. I originally gave this a 3.5 when I watched it. I do still think this is very much this year's Uncut Gems, but that's not a bad thing. And I kind of said it as a bad thing, like it was a lesser Uncut Gems, but it's very much a similar movie. And honestly, now that I've sat with it, it has bumped up to a 4, and it jumped from my top 15 movies of the year to my top 10. Here at number 7. I think Mikey Madison's performance is spectacular. Igor, my favorite character, maybe of the year. We'll talk a little bit about that. Just a really good film, deserves the accolades, and I just couldn't deny it any longer. It's What's Inside is my number 6 film of the year, and I absolutely think that this is a movie that Phil will talk about. No one is paying attention to. Not enough people are paying attention to, and it's a shame that it didn't get advertised on Netflix the way that some other films are. I was pleasantly surprised. Is it Inception level good, like Phil kind of hyped it up to be? No, but somehow it still met pretty close expectations. It was a vibe for sure, and it was unexpected twists and turns that I wasn't ready for, and I like that out of a film like this, your psychological thriller. So, Phil, jumping into this, I know Terrifier, not your jam, but anything else here? Couple other movies we're going to see here shortly from you, I believe.
Yeah, I'll save that for those two. Hitman, yeah, I didn't even like put together that this was going to be in your top 10, but that is, yeah, it is so much fun as far as what Glenn Powell and is up to there. Rebel Ridge, probably not something that I'm going to check out, and honestly I hadn't really heard too much about until we had started to get prepped for this episode, and yeah, never going to see Terrifier. So, it is funny that we got a lot of Art the Clown with a gun and like barely any Shadow the Hedgehog with a gun. So that's pretty frustrating.
It is frustrating. Philline, I know there's a couple movies here that we're probably going to talk about for you as well. You hate Glenn Powell and Hitman, and you're never going to watch Rebel Ridge. So really, do you want to talk about Terrifier 3 anymore?
Okay, that's not true. I did start watching Rebel Ridge this morning.
Wow.
At work.
Oh.
And then I felt a little emotional while I was at work watching it, and the first scene made me very emotional, so I was like, I can't watch this movie here at work. So I had to stop it. Was not able to pick it back up, but I was very interested. I just got very heated while I was at work, so I had to stop it.
That makes sense.
I'm very excited to see the man from Mufasa in this movie.
Okay.
What a
all right, that's fine. All right.
God blessed him.
I can't fucking.
We haven't
stand
gotten to Mufasa on Philline's list yet, so I assume it's showing up here pretty soon.
Yeah, I'm assuming it's a top 10. You're kind of crazy. All right. Well, we'll get to that momentarily.
Don't
Phil,
you talk about my brother.
my brother. We're in your top 10. This is where your 4s start, I believe. And let's go ahead and jump into a movie that's not for Philline in Dune.
Yeah, here's Dune Part 2 at a 4. I mentioned this, I believe, on the end of year awards, where it just as an incomplete film. That's why it's a little bit lower, but still in my top 10. As I've gotten farther away from it, once again, like because of the length of the film and it being essentially, just a middle part, I haven't gone back and wanted to rewatch it, but I also cannot deny that it's one of the best movies of 2024. Absolutely enthralled by this universe and cannot wait to see more. A Real Pain, like Eric had talked about a little bit earlier, in terms of the story that it is telling, I think it's very, very important. And two characters that you're not really sure who you're rooting for. Both of them you will love and also will both piss you off at the same time. His Three Daughters, this is where this shows up for me. It is a film that is essentially feels like it is a stage play. It all takes place basically in one area in a New York City apartment, and the performances here are fantastic. I've talked to you about about this film with both of you pretty in depth. Elizabeth Olsen is outstanding. They're all great, actually. So I will say this is definitely a trigger warning for those of you that have lost a family member, but it is very, very good if you feel like you can push through. 7 is where Dee Dee shows up for a lot of those reasons that Eric mentioned earlier, in terms of just growing up as a really awkward Asian teenager, not really sure where I fit in terms of a friend group. This really, really spoke to me. And shout out to Eric for putting me on Conclave, which is a film that I wasn't really familiar with heading into 2024. He said he went and saw it in theaters, and it was very much a highly rated film for him. And also, as someone who was originally baptized Catholic, seeing the ins and outs of the politics behind the Catholic Church, and obviously we know the Catholic Church in general is just a mess right now. But Ralph Fiennes, Stanley Tucci, John Lithgow, like, come on, man. Incredible performances. One of the best movies of the year.
Yeah, Conclave will be coming up here a little bit more in general. Some more Dee Dee talk at the top here. Never a Bad Thing, A Real Pain. I didn't see His Three Daughters. There's a movie you saw, Phil, that it's like your out there movie. It's not your That Christmas, but it is kind of out there in your top half of movies compared to the ones that we've had in common. And Dune Part 2, listen, I have it much higher than both of you, but I do understand, I do appreciate the love that's being given to the film as a whole from your scores, and it being top 10. I mean, I will not complain. Are there 9 better movies? I don't think so, but I do think that there definitely are at least 5 that you could prefer more, 9 that you could prefer more. I'm open to that conversation. 16 though, crazy. Just to go back. Philline, any thoughts on any of the movies here? Again, I know we don't want to spoil too much of our top 5, but yeah, take it away.
Yeah, you'll see a couple of these movies coming up shortly. His Three Daughters, I do really want to watch that. I just, like he said, I think just the premise of the movie, I think, would hit me pretty hard. So I have to be in a good headspace, and I'll tell you when that is.
All right. Well, let's go ahead here and jump into your next list. And then we're going to be at our top 5, which is crazy. We're still going to hit the 3-hour mark. So it's so glad we didn't do these individually.
If we went individually, though. Like
individually.
Again,
yeah.
I think we all felt pretty good about an hour in. And I don't know what happened. So, but a lot of great dialogue here and long legs. And Nosferatu back to back. All right, Philline, you're in your bag. Take it away.
So long legs. This is when my 4.5 starts. I have Nosferatu at a 4, but it should be a 4.5. This is where they start for me. Long legs for me was a wonderful film. 2 of my favorite horror films is Silence of the Lambs and Seven, and this was a perfect mix of both of those movies. Once I saw people comparing it to those 2 movies, I was all in. I thought it was really scary. I didn't follow a lot of the trailers and everything and the hype around it, so I think that's why it also benefited me some, because I know it was qualifying as one of the scariest movies of the year, which it was not, but I thought the story overall was very, very good. I loved Makia Monroe, I think that's how you pronounce it, if that's correct. I loved her, and I loved Nicolas Cage. They delivered a great performance, and it just really left a mark on me, so I truly enjoyed this film. Nosferatu, like I've said, I saw this review on Letterboxd, and I just have to repeat it. It is probably the most relatable film. Number 1, you're drawn to this really weird, creepy guy, even though everyone will warn you against it. Number 2, tricking your husband to save the day just to get him out of the way so you can do it. Number 3, you've been at my house for far too long, get the fuck out. So those 3 points is why it makes it so relatable. Lily Rose Depp is phenomenal in this film. Willem Dafoe, favorite character in this film. He is so funny. I loved how I was surprised by how thoroughly funny this movie was, and it was just beautiful to watch the gothic, the just the period piece. I just chills. I'm so glad I watched this in theater, and I really truly loved it. Dee Dee, we talked about it a lot during this, but it is a sweet and sometimes sad movie about an Asian American teenager figuring out who he is. I really loved the coming of age story. It's probably one of my favorite coming of age stories. Just showing the ups and downs of growing up and dealing with an Asian American family. And I texted this to Phil. I don't know how many people know. Me and Phil didn't grow up together, and this perfectly depicts on how we would be if we grew up together. So it was just really good to see that, and I love this film. Conclave, that made it in my top 10. I thought it was funny. I thought it was sad. I was really surprised that this movie made it in my top 10. I thought it was going to be triggering for me, being as I grew up in the Catholic Church, but it just took a new take on it, and I just was totally surprised by the ending. I loved it, and it's really smart on how they chose to make that final act and how they really blew our minds. And just the Uno reverse card on the Catholic Church, phenomenal, loved it. It's What's Inside. I think a lot of us had it around this mark. It was super chaotic. If anyone's ever seen Bodies, 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 this is what this movie reminds me of. I love that movie, and it was a perfect mix of Bodies, Bodies, Bodies and Talk to Me, two of my favorite horror films. So I thoroughly enjoyed this. The group of friends offer the perfect balance of hilarious moments and escalating tension, and the editing is brilliant. That is what absolutely made this movie, and I wish this movie came out in theaters, because it probably would be in my top 5 if we saw this movie in theaters.
Yeah, I definitely, especially from It's What's Inside to Dee Dee, like, those are nice to see as movies that all three of us have had pretty much in our top 15 or top 5 or top 10s. And not surprised, Nosferatu, Longlegs, that they're this high. I definitely get Nosferatu, and I think it's going to only get higher upon a rewatch. A little bit more understanding. Just Longlegs, just not for me. And I think that's to your point, though, about getting caught up in the trailers and the hype. But that is how I go out of my comfort zone sometimes to see some of these films. And I think where Nosferatu had that hype in a different way, that kind of worked for me. Longlegs just did not. But I'm glad to see you both love Conclave. I'm going to get into that a little bit here.
We essentially
in
traded.
Just a moment.
You traded us Conclave for Dee Dee.
Yeah, that's fair.
And then when
I don't know
if she's still in here, but shout out to Jordan for It's What's Inside. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Phil, anything you want to add to the list here?
Not too much. Just as far as Longlegs, just to talk about that and marketing, like probably one of the best marketing campaigns in a long time. But it's not enough again for me to take that jump. But just glad to hear that. At least, I guess that with Longlegs, because of the mixed opinions on it, it was just crazy because of the amount of hype around the film, and then it came out and people were kind of like all over the place. So, but as far as marketing, they need to be commended. They did a great job.
All right,
let's do it.
Well, now we're here.
Here we go.
We're here.
Join us in 2 weeks on Twitch.
Man, what a episode. If you are still sticking around, this episode's going to drop again, the full episode. I know we've had a couple people drop out, so that's the reason we wanted to put this on the feed, as well as this live stream, because we totally get it. Now, what I will say about my top 5 is that the 5th movie is a movie I just really enjoyed the shit out of, and I could totally get probably doesn't belong here, realistically. But my top 4, I would argue, are extremely important movies from this year, and all for different reasons that I'll get into. So let's jump into 5, which for me is Ultraman Rising. This was a movie that took me by complete surprise. We are still in 4 territory here, which should tell you I am not typically giving movies 4.5s and 5s. I'm very, maybe a little bit more of a stickler than the two of you when it comes to some of those higher ratings. And for me, though, 4, still a very, very strong score, and I just was taken aback by this movie. The fact that it's a kaiju movie, it's a found family, parental, single parent movie. Like, it's got so many different elements that work. I watched this movie twice. And I think the one thing I'd like to mention, maybe too late, but if you've followed me on the podcast, you know this is kind of my like speech, is I do think you have to watch a film at least twice to really form an opinion. That's why these scores really are adjustable until you've seen it at least twice. I have seen Ultraman Rising twice, and I just couldn't get away from the fact that it was one of my favorite movies of the year. Would be my favorite animated film, if not for the one that's coming up. Wicked, absolute powerhouse of a movie. We're going to talk about generational movies for my number one. I do think Wicked is close. This is close to being a very generational movie, and it will be to some. I did not go into this movie thinking it'd be my first 4.5 I'm giving, but it is. It is a great movie. Don't know what Phil's talking about. It is not too long. It just isn't. I thought they made it work. I absolutely thought it was effective. We could talk about the color scaling and the color grading. I personally wasn't bugged by it until I started hearing it was a problem. It's a valid point, I believe, if it bothers you, but not enough to make a real dent into the score. The music, absolutely powerful, intoxicating. The set pieces, our two lead actresses, both deserving an Oscar nomination, whether or not they're good people. Great performances. So Wicked, maybe the surprise of the year. If it wasn't for Conclave, which is a movie I went to go see purely on hype. And where Conclave I don't think is a generational movie, I do believe Conclave has a real shot at Best Picture. And it is a movie I think that should be seen more of, and it should be talked about more, because it's just a fantastic film. Very House of Cards-esque with the way it handles its politics. And again, Philline kind of touched on it, I believe, about that third act. I think they tastefully included a topic that many people say they want talked about in film, and they do it in a way that kind of does the Uno reverse card on the actual topic of the film or the target audience of the film. The Wild Robot is my favorite animated film of the year. I believe it's all three of ours. There's no debating at a 4.5 as well. This movie is absolutely fantastic. Upon a rewatch, maybe it hits that 5. Absolutely possible for any of these top 4 films, but I really enjoyed it. I think DreamWorks is in its bag. That's Phil's saying I'm going to steal. And yeah, it's a fantastic movie. Performances out the wazoo. You guys are both going to add a lot of commentary, so I won't take too much. My movie of the year. This is a generational film for me, is Dune Part 2. If you told me at the beginning of the year that I would have Dune Part 2 anywhere in the top 10 of my film, let alone 15, you might have even told me you're going to watch this film, and I would have said I won't believe you, because I didn't really like the first one. Dune Part 2 is absolutely it. And then we did a watch party with a bunch of people to watch Dune Part 1, so you guys could watch Dune Part 2, and I've seen this film twice. I started it at a 4.5, and I walked out of the second showing saying, why am I not giving it a 5? I cannot find a reason not to give it a 5. Sci-fi has always been an early love of mine as a Star Wars fan, and this, just again, absolutely a modern day masterpiece. And I've got to say, although it is a middle film in the sense of the story, obviously Dune Messiah is eventually going to come, I do think Dune Part 2 as a film alone is extremely excellent. It's a wonderful, wonderful movie, and it's a generational movie, I think. A movie that is definitely cracking my top 10 all time as time goes on, and how high it goes in that top 10, we will see. But yeah, that is my top 5, guys. Any commentary, Philline, maybe you want to jump into here?
I'll speak a little bit more about Wicked, obviously, in a little bit, and The Wild Robot. It makes sense, definitely, for Dune to be your number one movie. I totally get it. I'm not going to continue to tell my feelings and just upset you even
really
more.
Shouldn't.
So I will.
Yeah, that's probably
Okay.
that's probably a good
Signing
point.
off now.
Yeah, Phil, what about you? How are you feeling about the top 5, and you can also plead the 5th on Wicked. Nobody wants to hear it.
No, because the fucking musical is 2 hours and 45 minutes, and this movie is 2 hours and 45 minutes, so it is too long, because it should not be the same length as the actual musical. Ultraman Rising at 5 is, I know you enjoyed it more, but I think that's probably what you mean in terms of, like, it being a, having a little feedback in terms of it being actually a top 5 movie of the year. But again, it is still really, really good. And don't have any problems with any other ones except for Wicked.
Again, and maybe you not watching the original, I don't think you can have that take without seeing it to make that comparison. I think knowing first of all, to say that, to not seeing the musical, it can't really be a criticism because you didn't see the musical. But for those of us that have seen it, I don't think it was too long. I thought the music was enhanced in many ways. The set pieces, the especially everything with the animals and that whole like storyline, that they really made a focus on that, and I think that worked, and that made this movie a little bit more relatable in its themes. So there are a lot of things that come into play. Again, I think there's about a point scale difference from my rating to others before I start to question it. Anything lower than a 3.5 for me is blasphemous. But again, it's okay. We can all be wrong. I can be wrong about The Fall Guy, which like 2 people watched, and you could be wrong about Wicked, one of the biggest movies of the year. But Phil, this is your chance now to take over. God, you can take over with your list,
baby. Let's go.
Don't spend too much time on the first one, but yeah, you got 5 movies here, and I guess it's time. It's
Here we
fighting
go.
time.
Here we go. Godzilla x Kong, The New Empire. Is it the best film in the MonsterVerse? No, it's certainly not, but it was probably the most fun I had in theaters all year as far as just a fun, stupid action movie. Again, as far as MonsterVerse storytelling, I don't need anything crazy. I will say, Philline and I very much enjoy the Apple TV show, which Eric did not. That's where I will go for really good storytelling. But The New Empire, I mean, come on. There's, obviously I'm a Godzilla guy, but I mean, come on. Kong picks up a little tiny Kong and hits other uglier Kongs with tiny Kong. That's fucking cinema, man. That's why you go to the movies. That's why Nicole Kidman dresses up in her gown and tells us that we go see films in the theaters. And it was just a really, really fun time. I know that only myself, and listen, I was a big MonsterVerse detractor early on until I sat back, rewatched the films, and really understood what they were doing here. And it was just a really, really fun time. So this is my I know I'm alone here pick in my top 5. But it just made me feel good, and I had a lot of fun. When we get to the more serious side of things when it comes to film, this is where It's What's Inside pops up for me at number 4. And Eric, 2 movies on here totally messed up my end of the year awards because I watched them after that episode came out, as you can see. But It's What's Inside, as we have already echoed. If it had come out in theaters, I think it would be even more of a phenomenon. Yes, in terms of the Inception comparisons, that's a bit much, but in terms of like just me coming out of that film and being like, holy shit, what the fuck just happened? That's why I brought up Inception. Anora is, again, another really, really tragic film. It is a movie that I'll admit, I told this to Philline in the beginning, I was a little bored. And then we get to the middle part where new characters are introduced and it just goes fucking nuts. And I was like, I'm enjoying the hell out of this. And it's also, again, a very devastating story when it comes to Anora. And I think some of the criticisms that I've seen is like, we don't really know too much about her. What's the word that I'm looking? We don't really know much about like her, what she wants out of life and what her desires are. And I think that's false. We do know what they are, and those play out here in front of us in this movie. And definitely think it's worth a lot of people's time, and I understand why it's in a lot of people's top 10. This is where The Wild Robot pops up for me, number 2, best animated film of the year. Once again, if Flow wins Best Animated Picture over this, I will riot in the street. This is my first of 2 5s that I gave in 2024. Can't wait to see the remainder of the books be put to film, and even has me wanting to read the books in general, just to get a better idea of this world. And then Eric, Sing Sing is my number 1. Man, It's just so frustrating that it was so difficult to find this movie, and the fact that it was not in theaters for very long. It is going to re-release, I heard, in January in theaters, and I will go out of my way. I will drive maybe up to an hour. I won't go all the way to Orlando, but I will drive to go see this movie in a theater because it is the best movie of 2024. Once again, another 5 out of 5. Coleman Domingo is, I don't even know, generational in this film. And then when you get to the credits and you see some of those credits roll and you learn what you learn, man, you will sob. So fantastic movie. Those were the 2 5s that I gave out in 2024. And then, three films that I also liked for very different reasons round out my top 5.
Yeah, Godzilla Kong, this is your Ultraman Rising. I think Philline, this is going to be, no spoiler, but a film that we've already talked about that I did not enjoy as much as you did, that had no business being in the top 5.
That was Eric's
so at least...
shitty movie experience of 2024.
So that's us here in a nutshell. That is all I really have to say about Godzilla Kong. It's what's inside. We've talked about at length. Anora, a couple Letterboxd reviews that will help you really understand this movie. A terrifying tale of dating a mama's boy, very valid. And then also Sean Baker has a history of doing some movies like this. So Sean Baker does for sex workers what Martin Scorsese did for gangsters. I thought that was also very, very funny to give you an idea of what you can expect to walk into. If you have Anora higher or lower, I can definitely see that being a little bit of a divisive film. The Wild Robot, yeah, no doubt. And Sing Sing, I just don't want to watch pirated. I'm not interested in doing it in general, and I don't think a movie should be like that. So A24, what the fuck is your problem? I don't know what smear campaign is against this movie. This movie is not even being pushed for the Oscars. I mentioned it at the top of the episode fucking 3 hours ago. I feel like my list is incomplete because I haven't seen this. So I'm very excited to see its re-release in January. I did not know that. Keep me posted. I will be there, and stick around with the podcast to find out if my rankings changed. I do not see anything surpassing Dune because I don't give out 5s every day. But again, I do know that this was likely a contender for top movie from what I've heard. Philin, without spoiling too much, anything you want to talk about here before we round it out with your list?
Not too much. You'll see a lot of these films in mine, so no.
Okay, so you don't want to talk about Godzilla Kong anymore. Okay, that's a good call.
January 17th, based on this Variety article, although it does not say how many screens it's going to be released in.
Yeah, or tickets are not on sale yet.
Yeah,
that is disappointing. All right, Philin, man, if you're here still with us, round of applause for you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
But just a lot to recap the year. So much to discuss, and it's long overdue for the three of us to really get in touch about what films we loved and see more than just the list, get a little bit of context. So why don't you provide that context with your top 5 films we have all seen, but are in much different orders for you. So hit it off with Anora.
Yes, number 5 is Anora. This was a heartbreaking film for me. And it was a powerful performance by Mikey Madison. I saw her in Scream, and she's actually not a loved character in Scream, so to see her in this main character role is really great. I'm excited to see where her career is going to go from here. It offered a dual narrative, in my opinion. I had no idea what was going to happen at any point. It changed completely for me. I totally agree. Eric Igor is phenomenal. Love him. Love him so much. This movie, I told Phil I was watching it yesterday. I told him I was gonna finish it in an hour. I sat for about 30 minutes afterwards, just speechless, because the ending truly broke my heart. So nothing else I can say about that. Number 4 for me is The Wild Robot. Same thing, favorite animated film of the year. Totally great to watch. I loved all of the voice acting. It was very heartfelt. Same thing, left me in tears. Number 3, The Substance. Sorry. Eric, I know you did not like this film. I'll just read my blurb for this. This movie is intentionally made to make you uncomfortable. It brilliantly captures the absurd and harmful beauty standards women face. The film's depiction of female body dysmorphia, fueled by societal pressure, is both unsettling and really powerful. It is challenging to watch, but for me, it just is an impactful and campy way to just kind of like show what women have to go through, especially women in Hollywood, what they have to go through. I've had my own issues with, with society and body standards for women, and this movie literally takes that in a very explosive way. You'll get that if you saw the movie. So I just thoroughly enjoyed this film. I'm excited to see what Margaret Qualley has to come after this. She was stunning and amazing in this film, and just to see Demi Moore again was really great. So I loved this movie. On to Wicked. As a lot of people know, I watched this movie 4 times in theaters. I love this film. Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande Butera, I'll add her other last name into this as well. They have a magnetic and amazing chemistry. I actually really love the press tour. I think just how much this film means to them, it just really moved me, and it just made different times of this movie just really make sense. Like the part where they're dancing in the Ozdas ballroom, like there's a lot of backstory things that you learn in the press tour that just add just another level to this film. I'm getting emotional just talking about this movie because I love this film so much. The only reason why I do not think that it's too long is because if you see the Broadway, as much as it is my favorite Broadway, I think there is a pacing issue in the original Broadway, and this movie helps that. It really, really does. It is too fast. The Broadway is phenomenal, but there is a pacing issue, and this completely fixes that for me. And I'm just excited to see where this is gonna go, because this movie forever changed me for good. So I'm excited to see what is gonna happen next. My number 1 is just like Phil. It is Sing Sing. I love the powerful message, and it's just the amazing message that the power of art can do, especially in this broken system that is just designed to oppress and like just break individuals down. And just this whole entire like conversation that we're having is about movies and just the art of everything, and just how it can lift people up. And just this movie just really changed that. And to bring into perspective, my husband is an avid like movie talker. He is completely quiet in this film, and I like tried to talk to him throughout it, and like he just completely ignored me, and that's how I knew how much he loved this film, because he was just like completely quiet and just left speechless. So I'm happy we were able to share that together.
Yeah, I don't really believe you on the Peter thing, but for everything else, everything really tracks here. Again, Nora, we've talked a lot about it on The Wild Robot. The Substance, yeah, not gonna go there.
It's fine.
But Dennis Quaid, who I believe is Jordan's favorite actor, or one of them,
The Rookie.
Really slimy.
Dennis
in this
Quaid
movie.
from The Rookie.
He did a really good job. Both female leads also fantastic that you referenced. The performances for like 3/4 of this movie were not the problem for me. So very, very. This movie's got style. A lot of substance, and then it just goes off the rails. Wicked being a 2 makes a ton of sense. So shocked it's not even your 1, which again tells me I really want to see Sing Sing. So that hype has definitely been implanted in my brain. But yeah, no, that's kind of where I sit on my thoughts about your top 5. Phil, wrapping it up. How are you feeling about Philline's top 5?
Yeah, no surprises here whatsoever. She's echoed it the entire time. 3, and you can actually make 4. But the case 4 really, really great, incredible female performances here in this. If you also include 5, because if you also want to include Lupita Nyong'o as the Wild Robot, who just did a great job. The Wild Robot is I think for the voice acting cast is like what Transformers 1 like people think that it is. Like everybody is great in the Wild Robot and Transformers 1. They're just like
Agreed.
Okay, So, but no surprises there.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I'll definitely.
You can watch The Substance, Phil. You can definitely
I don't think
watch that movie.
so. Just based on the premise of the film, I know you're lying.
Yeah, there's
No.
totally made for you.
Crazy statement.
No,
that is no. Again, yeah. Philline, we'll talk more probably on Monday when we watch Raw. We'll talk more about The Substance and really get into an open debate. For context, I did watch it with a woman, and the woman in the house also. We started talking in that third act, like, all right, I think we've lost sense of the plot. I think we've lost not the theme. Again, they made that clear. The plot, not so much. But yeah. With that being said, our end of year awards, Jesus, 3
Letterboxd,
hours.
not end of year awards.
Our Letterboxd recap. I'm
All right,
so
let's go ahead
tired.
and start with all of my movies with number 81.
So if
Still
you want to, no, stop. If you want to check out the end of year awards for a little bit more, a long episode as well, not as long as this one, but this one again covered between the three of us. Obviously, Philline had, I could probably do the quick math here. Philline had the most amount of movies, but if I watched 28 of your 58
This
movies.
math is about to be totally wrong. I don't know. I don't trust you at all.
Just try. Why don't you trust me?
Math is not your thing.
I did not see 30 of the movies that you watched, and I did not see 24 of the movies that Phil watched. That's 54. And I watched 50. We covered over 100 movies on this episode. Yeah, we covered 104 movies.
And here comes some more.
Stop.
My number 2 movie of overall was Top Gun Maverick.
Well, I guess it's a good time to plug. Follow all three of us on Letterboxd, I guess. If you need those handles, we'll give them to you.
My handles are always
Mr.
Is
Eric
there
Almighty.
anything you guys are very much anticipating in 2025?
Oh, yeah.
Philline.
Yeah, we did a 2025
Foresight
Foresight.
episode. No.
Oh, that's right.
so
You have to go listen to that. We cannot
we
extend
can't
this.
do it anymore. I'm hungry.
I don't think so. Okay, I'll go with mine.
Okay.
No more.
Wicked Part 2.
Surprise.
Or Wicked for Good.
Surprise.
I
Shocker.
don't know what that is.
We're going to do double feature, right,
Juror
guys?
number 3,
No.
which is going to come out.
It's going to come out.
That's the next Clint Eastwood movie.
All right, Phil, take us home. Take us home, please. And
Oh, man. Twitch, for those of y'all that hung out. Also, let's give a shout out to Joyanne, our moderator, for the entire time. Thank you so much, Joyanne, for dropping those links in there and keeping everybody honest. We appreciate you. And Jordan and I will be back here on Twitch in a couple of weeks. What we're going to play, that's kind of up for grabs. Everybody has a gaming PC. So we are going to be throwing out some new games, some new multiplayer games. Eric, Stefan, and Jordan and I have been just a disaster on Ready or Not. So maybe we'll play that on stream. It has been a whole lot of fun, but we've also jumped into like Pico Park, and Marvel Rivals is still going very well. That's been a lot of fun. So you'll see us here in a couple weeks on Twitch. Everything you need is in the Linktree link that Joyanne has been sharing for the video audience. For your audio audience, it will be in the show notes of this episode, where you can find everything you need. The other social media pages to keep up with: Instagram, TikTok, our growing Discord page, the Twitch channel, and then, of course, YouTube. If you want to help out the podcast, one of the great things you can do, share the content, tag us, let not only us know that you're listening, but also let your friends and family know that you are listening as well. But if you want to get some behind-the-scenes stuff, some extra exclusives, which are going to be abundant in 2025 in terms of not only extra episodes, but also early episodes. Eric will let you know how you can get all of that before wrapping it up.
Yeah, so we're going to keep it very, very short. If you are still listening, you should probably subscribe to our Patreon. 3 hours is crazy to listen to anybody, and the fact that you listen to us, we really appreciate it. We hope we entertained you along the way, and we hope to do more of that over on Patreon. So if you want to join us there, along with our supporters like Briar, T3 Kato, Stefan, Corey, and Vintage Macaroni, definitely do so. You really should be asking yourself why you haven't already, to be completely honest. But that is it for this episode of the Wait For It podcast that we live streamed successfully on Twitch through what we usually use just to do the podcast.
Number 76,
so you might see
Lego
more
Ninjago. 75,
Phil?
Porco Rosso.
Phil?
73, Knock at the Cabin.
Phil?
67 was Bell.
Phil? I will use mute powers on you as host. Thank you guys so much for joining us. My name is Mr. Eric Almighty. That is my co-host for the Filipino and friend of the show, Philline. And if you like this content, make sure to check us out. We release new episodes every Wednesday with bonus content on platforms like TikTok and Twitch. And all you got to do is wait for it.
This is the Wait For It podcast.